Oh, wow.
Or not start?
I don't hear him again.
I'm not talking yet. How about that?
Did you check the audio
Checking
on the bottom
audio.
left?
Yep,
Oh.
yep, yeah, we did. It's
Uh,
going up and
I'm
down.
gonna go click it though that's the mic you're seeing, the audio side of it.
So
Yeah,
are we taking
I would,
back?
I would continue on with what we have here and let them work on the back door and
I don't think
Like I
you knew
said, I
this.
do agree with you, commissioners, that yes, we need some kind of
Oh,
storage
well, we don't
limit and how you do store stuff. But quantity, you're gonna have to separate, homeowner, ranchers and businesses.
it is my expert opinion
Oh.
of the lack of expert that I am, that our planning commission is plenty capable of working through that and coming up with how many and where and what kind and what number, or maybe they change it from the number of batteries to the number of kilovolts. So it eliminates all the power tool options out of the equation.
Well, I understand that. I get it. I'm just trying to help out the community too, because we all got stuff. I even wanted to set up battery storage for solar and I found out that was a waste of time. But I do agree that there should be a number limit. Nobody should have a huge storage of them. I realize they're dangerous, even with my e-vehicles I have, even one parked out here in the front of the office. Dude, it can catch on fire at any time. Anything can happen.
Right. And I guess for me, I don't care if the number's 500, 1,000, whatever. My main worry was somebody going into a business and warehousing
Right.
a crap load of old derelict
Well, you're still
batteries.
just like the storage that we had over here for the tires at the lagoon. Same problem, same issues. I understand where you're coming from. I get it too.
Okay.
I'll sing.
Thank you.
I'll sing to him when the end of his 3 minutes is up.
Oh, no, it's fine. I'm done. It's just careful what you do with the battery storage
Yeah.
today. A lot of thinking, a lot of considerations to go into it. No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
You can hear him. Roger, if you're still there, could you get on and see if we're working yet?
okay, how about this?
Oh,
Yes.
it is.
Yes,
Madam Chair, while we were in internet blackout, we made a motion to move public comment to 110 and adjust our business agenda. I am now going to make a motion to rescind that and put public comment back to right now.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. So we are back for public comment then. Roger, you are on and thank you for your help.
oh, no problem. Well, good morning, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the complex situation in Dallasport. And I've got many, many questions, but I'm limiting myself just 5 today, and the hopes that you can provide some clarity about these certain aspects. So here we go. One is the main reason the airport well has not been hooked up to the Dallasport water system as the contract apparently requires it, the result of the Federal Aviation Administration forbidding it. 2, if that's true, what reason did the FAA give for denying permission? 3, if that's not the sole reason, what other factors are involved? Switching topics slightly. Number 4, as to the $200,000+ grant apparently authorized but never allocated, is it true the reason it was never allocated was because the PUD representative on the 2-person committee that divvies up the landfill gas dollars had some conditions that were not met? And 5, can each of you say on the record they do not have a goal or intent of breaking the contract with the Dallasport Water District? Thank you much.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, online. Any hands? Someone gonna try after all of that? If anybody would like to give a comment, please raise your hand. Or unmute. 7211.
Greg Wagner, cease. Last week, the renewable supporter, Jake Anderson, stated how safe the wind turbines are because the wind corporations followed all the county codes. That was a lie. They did not follow the codes. In the EOZ, it states, there shall be a minimum distance of 500 feet from a turbine tower to a public road or private access roads providing access to more than 5 existing homes. There are 6 turbines at Windy Flats, 13 on Hocker Ridge, and more near Bickleton that violate the codes. Anderson, your statement is just more lies. That's all we get from you. You'd say anything to protect the renewable corporations you work for. Best decision you ever made for the citizens of the county was not to run for re-election. Several weeks ago, Christopher made allegations of corruption. If this corruption exists, where's your proof? You cannot provide evidence, then it's just lip service, BS, and lies. You claim to always tell the truth and provide the evidence of corruption. The decision to close the jail and create a Department of Corrections is the worst decision ever made. Anderson said, we make many decisions without the facts. And this jail closure decision is proof of that. Real leaders do not make decisions without all the facts. Our county lacks real leaders who care about the county and the citizens. Your fact-less decision to create a Department of Corrections will place an additional financial burden on the citizens, a burden we don't want. Every week, the citizens watch their paid public servants and so-called leaders who dislike each other, argue, bicker, and fight. Your conduct is pathetic and disgusting, and this board is dysfunctional. You 3 refuse to work together for the betterment of the county and the citizens. You should be ashamed of yourself. When will you start working for the people? You're setting a poor example for the county employees. Anderson said the county is a toxic work environment, and it's because of you 3. You act like children. There are those in the county that have been asking for county child daycare. What they don't realize, we already have that child daycare. It starts every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Okay, anyone else for public comment? Please raise your hand or unmute. Dallasport taxpayer voter.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Rizzi, good morning.
Good morning. I today am going to remind everybody that on September 12th, Thursday, we're going to have a commissioner's candidate night. So doors will open 6 o'clock to 6:30 so that people can come in and fill out the cards with the questions. They have to be filled out on a card. The meeting will start at 7 p.m. and will go to 9 p.m. Could be extended if the participants wanted. We're expected to have all the commissioners that are running there. District 1 will be Todd Andrews and Amanda Kitchens. And District 3 is Dan Christopher and Ron Eyrig. And I've understand that they've all been contacted and all said that they will be there. So these are all 4 candidates that will appear on the November ballot. And let's see. Each candidate will be allowed 5 minutes opening statement. Then questions will be the ones submitted in writing of those attending the event will be presented to the candidates. Candidates are allotted 3 minutes each to respond to each question addressed to them, or some questions can be given to all 4. Questions will be accepted until roughly about 8:30 p.m. and each candidate will be allowed a 5-minute closing statement. If time remains after all written questions have been answered, attendees will have the opportunity to pose verbal questions to the candidates. This event is open to all Klickitat County residents. It's very important for us to basically interview and find out where our candidates are on the all the policies and all the things that the people of Klickitat County, the taxpayers, have questions about. and we're hoping to get good answers. That's all I have today. I just wanted to remind everybody on the 12th to come to Dallasport to the community center, and it's right across from the post office, and we hope to see you there. Let's ask some really good questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Izzy. Okay, anyone else online this morning?
People in the room used up there, right?
They have not, and I didn't come back to you. I wasn't sure if anybody else had raised their hand. I can go to Adrian. Would you like to speak this morning? Yeah, I'm sorry. I just assumed Mr. Smith was the only one this morning.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Adrian Bradford Lyle. The call in about wind turbines just reminded me. First of all, I am a major supporter of wind turbines for energy and other reasons. I grew up in an area where they were used, and that was 70 years ago. And they weren't used for generating electricity. They were used for manual pumping of water and for they were used for mostly manual issues, highly important, including churning of butter. I mean, they just operated manual functions by my Amish neighbors, and they taught us how to use them. But what also interests me, I follow wind energy very carefully, and I dug into professional now studies, and we're constantly told that these wind towers have a life of 20 years. Science now is arguing that very seriously, that they have a life of 7 years. And the reason is because inside of that turbine, which you can see from the road, the wheel, of course, is turning very slowly, and a non-engineer would say, how will it possibly generate electricity turning like that? Well, it inside of that big part, which you see up in back of the blades, there's a series of gears, and it increases the turning of the generator 18 times, and that unfortunately wears out in 7 years, and then the cost that is used for wind towers is way understated, and so while I again am highly in favor of alternative energy, including wind, we just must be reminded it is not a very soon replacement of the energy sources that we already have, and anything to do with just eliminating and stopping our current energy sources is just fantasy. So I just wanted to lay that information out. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Back online, is there anyone else that wish to give comment this morning? Raise your hand or unmute. There we go. Good morning, Sherry. Oops. And we're not hearing you, Sherry. I'm sure it's on that side this time. We went through our debacles already. No.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah. Sorry, that's my bad.
That's okay.
Okay. Good morning, County Commissioners. This is Sherry from Houston. I wanted to reply back to last week's comment, to my comment. And this is why I wish that the people and the government could have more communications back and forth, but that's not how we do it now. We're limited to 3 minutes of our free speech, and then you guys comment back. And if you take a comment that I make and make it into something else and address something else, not what I said, I don't have a chance to rebut or to say, or to correct, to correct the statement. And last week I commented on the fire of the wind turbine that recently happened. I'm not sure the location. We all know what happened. And a blade flew off. And my concern was where the blade went, but that wasn't my biggest concern. My biggest concern was the fire that it started. And I appreciate the fast response from our local taxpayer paid emergency response. Remember, it's not the corporations paying for it, it's the people. So they did a good job to put that fire out to avoid another Juniper Canyon fire. And my concern is, and I want to be clear and correct Commissioner Anderson, it's not the setback, which are violated, as Greg said, of these wind turbines. It's the fire that they start that spreads to other people's properties, that destroys their property. So that's what I'm saying. We should care about our neighbors. Love your neighbors as you do yourself, and we should care about them. And if there's equipment out there that's old and deteriorating and failing and starting fires and it hurts other people, we should care. And then also, what was I going to say about this? Anyway, that's a correction, Mr. Anderson. I'm concerned about people's property. And also I want to, we are discovering that taking up farmland and these big, huge, unbelievable renewable energy sources, taking up farmland could be like a scam. Okay. So you guys are saying, yeah, nay, but where it really comes down to is these landowners. These landowners have to be aware of what they're doing with their land. Are they going to wreck it forever? Are they going to be stuck with the decommissioning? Are you going to be, I heard there was a wind turbine company that's not going to renew. Are they going to that could be rumor. Are they going to decommission, or is the landowner stuck with that? We don't talk about the lien that was put on people's property out in Bickleton over that solar project because contractors are bickering back and forth who pays who. And again, we trace these corporations back. They are foreign corporations. They're foreign corporations. And are they here to hurt us? To profit off us like a corporation does? The people, landowners, think of the future. Think of your future. What are you really doing? And government, think about the people.
Thank you, Sherry. Anyone else on Zoom or in the room? Oh, good. Good morning. Come forward. Yeah.
Candy Magnuson, Golden. I got to see the fire start on Windmill, okay, from my house. And thank God for our fire department, okay, because they did get it out. But this is a critical time for fires. I mean, we know still burning at the Trout Lake and stuff. The thing is, what I want to know is who pays our fire department? Who do they pay enough to help us pay the fire department? When I got my land taxes last time, there's about 8 different things on it that I'm paying for. Really? I can't remember voting for all 8 of them. And so this is true. These windmills are getting older quicker, okay? Because our condition here in Goldendale, Klickitat County, we have high winds. We have hot weather. We have cold weather. And if you look some of this stuff up, it's not really to our benefit. But I do want to know if the county, if we're paying, the county people are paying for some of this burning and fires and stuff that they start. Thank you.
Thank you. So back online. Please raise your hand or unmute. We'll give it just a little. We're running behind because of our debacle, but we'd like to give you the time if you'd like to speak this morning, but we need to know you're there.
Rebsky is on.
Rebsky.
Yes, this is Robert Brown from Dallasport. Last week, Mr. Anderson made the statement that the fruit packers, being the developer, should have paid to increase the water purification system's capacity at Dallasport. If you look back about a decade, isn't the county and the city of the Dalles the owners of the Columbia Gorge Airport? When they came to Dallasport Water about fire flow, wouldn't that make them the developer? I've been digging into this a little bit, and the cost of the fire flow appears to have been about $1.2 million. On 12/12 of 2011, the Dallasport water system took out a loan for $896,000. $400,000 of that money became a third of a cost of the fire flow system that was installed at Dallasport. Mind you that Dallasport water systems distribution system is incapable of using that fire flow for its own fire usage. The remainder of that money was spent by Dallasport to completely replace the water purification system to its 300 GPM. As part of fire flow, as we all know, part of that formula requires 600 GPM to be put back into the system. Considering that the county and the city were the developers, why was Dallasport Water even required to put up 33% of the cost of the fire flow for the airport for equipment that they cannot use? That's just a comment. I'll keep digging into this because my job in the U.S. military was water and wastewater. So I kind of have an interest in this. This whole fire flow contract agreement, basically I'm starting to form the opinion that the Columbia Gorge Airport is getting subsidized by Dallasport Water and took advantage of Dallasport Water and the corrupt management of Dallasport Water at that time, as proven by 3 years of Washington State audits. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else online? I think we've exhausted the room. So unmute or raise your hand, please. Anyone else? Last call. We'll try to get back on schedule. So thank you for your comments. Do I have commissioners that would like to make statements?
I'm working on my responses.
Okay, so I think usually the chair goes last, but I'll go ahead and give the guys a little bit more time. So Mr. Nichols, yes, it is a very complicated, convoluted mess, and the longer it goes, the more strings that are out there that are confusing. And just like with Mr. Brown and Mr. Rizzi, and those people that comment that are interested and stay involved, we have more and more people digging in and more people with opinions. I cannot tell you how many times I have visited with Dallasport or the Dallasport Water Board and tried to stay engaged and work through the system for the good of Dallasport. And I have landed on, we have attorneys involved because they're reviewing the contracts with the FAA. Until I hear back from them, there's nothing that I can comment. I am a lay person. I cannot interpret those contracts on one side or the other. So I'm waiting for counsel. And unfortunately, that's where it is at. And it's taking an exorbitant amount of time. And I've sent the question out to several people in the last week of when will we get to the bottom? Are there other reasons that it's being held up for me? No. The gas tax were not conditions by an alternative person. Those conditions were set in the original contract that was approved to give the $200,000 to Dallasport Water. And I just reviewed that again last night. And it was during Rex Johnston and another commissioner's time period. I can't quote the date. It might have been 2018. And that's what's in that contract. And that's why they can't release it. There are conditions that have to be met on the Dallasport side that haven't been met. So they will not release that gas tax. I am going to go back around to the PUD again and have another alternative conversation with them about, is there something else we can do? It didn't work a couple months ago, but I'll try it again. And is it a goal to break the contract? never of mine. I don't think that that would even be possible with legalities. You would leave, if anybody like the county in a backdoor means tried to break a contract, that'd leave us legally liable. So I don't see that happening. But frustrating situation, yes, but we will get through it, and under me sooner than later. And thank you for your comments on wind, Adrian and Sherry. Thank you for staying engaged and always commenting and helping us move forward to look at issues. And Candy, I'm sure the other commissioners will comment, but yes, there are payments, and our emergency management system keeps track of costs and works with the fire departments, and they're able to apply for state and federal funding to help them when they help fight those fires. So there's, on top of tax dollars, there are funds we can access. Mr. Anderson. I'm sorry, we are running behind. If you've been listening to Zoom, we are in time trouble today because of computer issues.
Luckily, we have all day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The main reason the airport well is not hooked up, a result of the FAA, that was a question from Roger Nichols. The airport well was set to be hooked up. There was grants and loan packages. The Dallasport Water District had worked together and the county had worked together so that hopefully that construction would have occurred in 2018, 2019. The Dallasport Water District decided to not move forward with that grant loan package, which is a business decision on their part. By doing that, the conditions could not be met for the release of the dollars to hook up the airport well, knowing that the airport well was going to cost more than that just to hook it up in the first place. With that, then Mr. Nichols, you went over to the FAA denying permission. Part of the original agreement, I believe from 2012, in order to move forward with that contract, you have to have the FAA's sign off and buy off, and the FAA has yet to do that. With the FAA not doing that, that does not give the county the ability to deed the water right to the Dallasport Water District until that is done. Until that is done, there's some discussion on whether or not the airport well could or could not be hooked up, but there's ways around that in which I feel that the airport well could be hooked up, especially if and when the Dallasport Water District needs access to that hole. There's a lot of costs associated with that. The county has been working on running the main line over there so that the well can be hooked up in the future. We still have to run power over there and get the pump. It's going to be an expensive proposition. So whether other factors are involved, Mr. Nichols, give me a call and we can talk through it. There's a lot of history involved and I'd be happy to help in any way. And then Mr. Wagner, thank you for your accusations. I was wondering where you've been lately. You like to talk a lot and provide a lot of criticism on the commissioners and how we communicate. What you have is 3 type A personalities up here who have their own management styles. And I don't know if you look at the conversations that go on in DC or in Great Britain, but the act of Washington State as well. The act of governance is not always pretty. It's not always cordial. There are vigorous debates, and that is part of the republic that we live in that makes this nation great. We all are allowed to have our own opinions and to voice those opinions. And while Commissioner Christopher and I don't always agree, I can respect his opinions. And I respect his position and his position as a county commissioner. And so thank you for bringing it up because politics is not always pretty. While we can try to remain and be statesmen and always speak with kindness and courtesy, we are humans too. And when we get attacked personally, when people talk about our hats, as I heard was happening before when we were having personal difficulties, it can affect us and even just the interpersonal communication between us, because we all believe what we believe, and we believe that, and we wouldn't sit here if we didn't. And so we will vigorously debate, and I believe that debate gets to the best decisions. Speaking to Mr. Rizzi, thank you for bringing up my hat. I'm happy to say that we finished third cutting of hay yesterday and all of the hay is in the barn for the winter. So thank you very much for pointing out that, yes, I actually am a farmer and rancher. You'd be surprised how many text messages I got from that. Sherry and Candy. The wind turbines have paid millions and millions of dollars in property tax, both to the county coffers as well as to all the junior taxing districts, from the schools to the libraries, and most importantly, the fire departments. We had a fire chief from the east end of the county come in and speak about all the things that the wind turbines have done. On top of that, it's also the schools. Bickleton was able to rebuild their school. That those tax dollars flow into our road department, our building department, and we've gotten millions of dollars from those. So yes, they do pay taxes. And if they are within the district bounds, then they don't get charged. Just like if your house burns down, you won't get charged for the fire department coming to your house if you're within the bounds of the fire district. If you're outside the bounds of the fire district and you choose to not be in one, then you will get a bill from the fire department for responding. So that's how we pay our taxes to have the services. And Sherry, I believe that's what I was trying to explain last week with that while the green energy projects aren't great to look at to some people think they're beautiful. Some people like the blinking lights. Some people don't like the blinking lights. The one thing is true is that the green energy projects have brought millions upon millions of dollars into this county in terms of jobs, wages, revenue, and as well as those landowners. And I agree with you, Sherry, 100%. Before you ever sign a lease for any green energy project, you should definitely hire a lawyer and make sure that that lease is protecting you. And I hope that all of the people who have signed leases in the past have done so. We, as a county commissioner, don't have control over those leases. We don't have control over who decides to lease their land. What we do have control over is the things that this board has worked on, and that is changing the decommissioning laws and plans that we have locally so that we are ensuring that if a project goes bankrupt before it's completed, that it's bonded, so that if we do have to clean it up or somebody has to clean it up, there are bonds out on that. This board has taken a very active interest in green energy over the past few years. And I thank this board for all their work doing that to ensure that the county and the community is protected. And whew, what great comments today. Mr. Brown, the only thing I can say, because we're short on time, is that when those agreements were done and who pays what, and I've reviewed those agreements for when the airport became part of the Dallasport Water District and spent all the money for the upgrades. That was all done by a licensed engineer, and that licensed engineer worked very diligently to set the values of how much who has to pay. And I think it's obvious that from the airport coming online and coming on board with Dallasport Water District, the millions of dollars of improvements that have been done to the Dallasport Water District's water system has been a benefit and a boon to not only the airport, but also all the members of the water district, as well as the county in general. And so I would refer you to those agreements and how those were put. But I would just mention that the Dallasport Water District, while if they cannot provide fire flow at this time, they have a capital improvement plan so that they can provide fire flow when it comes time to replace all those lines. And I hope they're diligently working on replacing those lines so that those people in Dallasport that are on the Dallasport Water District don't lose their insurance at some time in the future because you can't provide enough fire flow through those 2, 3, and 4-inch lines. But the improvements that were done were a benefit because those are improvements that all of the ratepayers don't have to pay into the future. With that, I'll yield back my time.
Thank you.
I will start by saying that I think Commissioner Anderson made some good comments there. I guess I'll start by addressing Mr. Wagner. While the board may not agree on every issue, and we might have vigorous debate on every issue, and I believe, I will speak for myself, that me and Commissioner Anderson do not agree on solar projects, placement and siting, and whether it's personal property right or whether the county should have some role in that. What I do believe, and I hate to speak for Commissioner Anderson, he can correct me if I'm wrong. We do agree that our previous road haul agreements were not up to snuff. Our previous decommissioning plans were not up to snuff. In protecting the citizens, and we did work together on a common goal to upgrade those to better protect the citizens. So while you're saying we never get along and we can't get anything done, I would argue that this board has probably got more done in 3 years than the previous board did in 10. It may be messy, but it got done. So I will argue that. Candy, Commissioner Anderson was pretty dead on the money with his taxing statements. All the little sub districts you see on your property tax bill, those have always been there. Library, cemetery district, hospital district, EMS district, fire district, school, blah, 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 down the line. The county is split into 2 portions. One is county general, one is county road. But yes, we get the county portion. All the rest of them go to those juniors. Now, I could be wrong, but I am under the understanding that the landowner that owns the property pays the property tax, and the windmill and or solar panels pay personal property tax for the items on top of it. But whether it's the underlying property or the item on top of it, they both get taxed, and they both have the same 8 or 10 items on their bill as you do. And they're taxed based on the value of their property, just like you're taxed on the value of your property. Now, so agreeing with Commissioner Anderson again, does the fire department charge the windmill for starting the fire? No, just like they wouldn't charge you for starting your fire. Now, if your fire at your house started because you were having an illegal slash burn in the middle of the summer, they could send you a bill. The same as the fire department could send the windmill a bill if that fire started from some illegal activity on the windmill property. But that again is up to the fire chief and the fire commissioners, which are a separate taxing jurisdiction. But I hope that better explains that. And if it doesn't, I'll go to Sherry's question that we don't have any communication. And so nobody can talk to the commissioners. If it doesn't answer your question, feel free to call me or email me or send me an email. I'm happy to go back and forth and have any conversations with the general public that they want. Kind of going backwards. Mr. Rizzi, thank you for your comments about the meeting being housed down there. I cannot talk politics from my seat here, but I will say on a general level about politics in general, I very much appreciate communities getting involved to try to educate other members of their communities. I find it unfortunate that I would guess probably 90% of the general public has no idea where any candidate, whether that's a commissioner or a treasurer or a state representative, stand on any issue. Because they're not reading the material, they're not reading the voter's guide, they're not reading websites, they're not paying attention. So the reason you get candidates in office, whether that's locally, state, or federal, or presidents, is because people are voting based on the voter ballot they get, and they're checking the D or checking the R. And if there's 2 R's, the first R gets 5% more votes. And this name sounds like Lincoln, so I'm going to check that one. And unfortunately, that is the problem with our democracy, in my opinion, is lack of people paying attention. And those that don't pay attention are winning their elections based off name recognition, which is money, because money buys votes. And if you don't have the money, your chances of winning are a heck of a lot less. So until people actually get involved in their governments, from school boards to anything else, they really can't cry. They get what they get and they get who they elected. Now I'm going to guess most people don't like that answer, but that's the honest answer. Mr. Nichols, lots of questions in there. You said the main reason with the airport well is the FAA is forbidding it. I do not know that the FAA is forbidding it. The FAA has to approve it, and so far they haven't agreed to approve it. I don't know that they've forbid it. They just haven't approved it. And it is my understanding, of which I could be wrong, from lack of any kind of updates on this whole situation, or very few of them over the past 3 years, from council, is that the question the FAA has is it a gift of public funds? Are there, because there's laws in place that if we're giving something away for less than it's worth, that's a gift of public funds. So if the water right is worth $1 million, we should be charging the Dallasport Water District $1 million. I think that is where the question currently arises. And I think it's the question on whether that water right is valued at today's water right values, or whether that water right is valued at what it was worth 14 years ago when the contract was signed. What is currently going on in there, or what are the other factors? Honestly, I don't know, because I haven't got an update. I don't know. I'm not allowed to talk to the attorney. I don't know. Is it my goal or intent of breaking that contract? Absolutely not. It was 100% my goal to abide by that contract. It is my goal to abide by that contract. And here's a more important question: to abide by that contract as written, using the value of the water right when that contract was written 14 years ago. I am not interested in reevaluating the water right to what it is currently worth today. I'm telling you, I want to abide by the contract at the value the water right was 14 years ago. That's an important question. And that is the deal breaker on whether that contract goes through or not goes through. Other than that, I think that pretty much sums it up for me.
Thank you. Okay. So we're a little bit behind, but Casey, do you have something quick? No, okay, just sitting in. Thank you. See, I was giving you first, but ahead of Jeff, so. What happened with the,
See, planning is next, but I don't see him here.
no,
I'd say we move on to Public Works.
Yep,
okay, we'll switch places.
we're throwing him in this
So
afternoon.
we'll do an update from our Public Works Department Director, Jeff Hunter, and that's Gorola. Thank you. Thank you. What's little?
What a morning.
too. We're making it.
Public Works at
Really a
10:07.
Monday. Good morning.
Good morning. We'll be quick. I didn't hear the consent agenda, so I don't know if it got approved or not. Okay, so we'll move on past that and we'll go right into the construction program. We have no pay estimates. It's not payday for most of the contractors yet.
No. Sunday a little late, we're contractors working on prepping the subgrade and placing base rock. On road design, Sunnyside Road overlay, we have the first on-site review this week. Hopefully we can get that put together before too long, so we can get that out to add. Bridge repair bundles, we're reviewing 30% plans from the consultant. Bickleton overlay, funding paperwork was submitted to WashDOT for its final approval. Tentatively planning on October advertisement date. White plastic edge lines, first draft is in review. It's the same with the curb warning signs, first draft is in review. And road safety plan, the RFQ is currently on ad, looking for a consultant to do that project.
Okay, on the maintenance side, east side are working on Matson, finishing up the Matson BST. They have some hot mix patching and they're going to finish up on the East Road paving. They have a few approaches to take care of. And then we'll be back grading if we get some moisture. West side, we're doing guardrail repair, which we will talk about here at the end again. We're doing some ditch work on Bill Moore, and we're working at Trout Lake Park. That's all. The Trout Lake Park stuff is grant funded. On facility side, countertops are complete in the courtroom. The only thing not in there is the new attorney tables, but those will come in after the carpet goes in. Carpet is scheduled for 13th through the 15th, still on schedule. Events, we have events. The fairgrounds is doing well. We have events. I don't know about doing well, but we're gonna have a lot of events. We have an event every weekend this September, from birthday parties to heavy equipment rodeo this Sunday. Heavy equipment rodeo's out in the parking lot. It's Republic's thing. It's a qualification to actually do some nationwide rodeo. I'm not really sure how it all goes, but other projects, Pioneer Center, we're going to looking at doing some changes to the landscaping out there because it needs to be cleaned up. Doesn't look very good, so we're working on that. Jail vent upgrade. All the cell vents have been upgraded now. The only ones that need to be upgraded are the common areas. Those are all different sizes and special orders. But those are also under the view of cameras. Cells are not, but those have all been upgraded. Trout Lake Park, like we said, RCO, we're working on grant work there. And kitchen is still going around fine for KVH. We had another guardrail damage over just recently. Another 20 poke big guardrail damage out on Vital Grade. So hopefully we will find out who did that. We haven't got an accident report. That brings our total to $350,000.
I was wondering when I drove by it yesterday if number
we-
one, if you knew about it, number two, if you had any idea who did it.
We don't know yet. I'll be honest, hopefully, Seth has applied for state funding for the fire. Hopefully we get all that because frankly, I don't have an extra $350,000. One other thing that probably could have is RAP projects. We submitted because the highest scoring one we had was Sleepy Hollow. So we've submitted for the Sleepy Hollow reconstruction, our phase 1 of the reconstruction.
Phase 1 and 2.
Phase 1 and
But
2.
it looks likely phase 1 could score high enough to receive some grant funding for.
Where all does that, from where to where on Sleepy Hollow?
Both phases would go from Appleton to Lyle Snowden.
That would complete
That'd complete that link between them two.
in both phases.
If you don't have to use a grad match for guardrail.
No, it won't work
They
out
won't.
that way. We wish it would, but no. I think that's all we have, huh?
Yeah.
Okay,
I have stuff for you.
okay.
That you didn't hear because I added it on to have a discussion about road signs. I don't know where you guys are with the turkey crossing sign that I had tried to get in for month. Well, I'll let you go with that before I go on to the next, the deer crossing sign that I'm here to discuss today.
We're calling locates to put those signs out. So we expanded the area a little bit further because there's like 3 zones where we see incidents with all kinds of wildlife, from Struck Road pretty much to Schilling Road.
There's about 3 crossways there.
Yeah, so we're going to cover the whole area, put wildlife crossing signs up
Not
there.
turkey,
So,
but
no, wildlife crossing is what the signs are going to say.
Works for me. Well done. Moving on.
Okay.
Another in the same ballpark is deer. And if you're aware of going towards my house about 7 miles out of town, you got the big man-made pond there on the right. I was notified from that property owner today, which I don't want to name the names. You already know the property I'm talking about, of another deer casualty in front of their house. I don't know if I drive that road every day. So yes, it is a natural filter, especially in the spring, as you have that wood lot across the road. It's mainly fawn. So you guys do have a carcass out there to pick up on the south side of the road. About 100, 150, 200 yards east of that carcass on the north side of the road is another carcass that you can grab while you're there. It didn't look like a deer, but it was something else. And that resident is requesting a deer crossing sign because they say it's a lot of fawns and mamas that bed down in that wood lot. Most of the deer I see cross there are fawns and mamas, not bucks. And they are requesting a sign because they're tired of cleaning dead deer out from in front of the road. They didn't know you guys would take them away. They do now. Because I think that's one way to get a sign is the more you guys are having to haul the things, the more you might put up a sign there. And I don't know that it will slow people down. But there are 2 or 3 spots along that road that are natural funnels, just like the Lyle area. And that is one of them. So I am requesting that we throw a deer crossing sign up there. I don't know what it costs us to put, what does it cost us to put up a sign like that? Couple grand?
250, 300 bucks a sign.
300 bucks, and then you gotta maintain them. And
Yeah.
So that's way cheaper than I expected. So my kind of point is with these things, if somebody complains, I think we need to verify that it's a natural crossing route and not just because some of these, if on my 10-mile stretch, if there was people that wanted a sign, I'd flat tell them, no, it's a waste of money because it's just not a natural corridor. But on the areas that are natural corridors, the way I look at it, it's 300 bucks. Makes the taxpayer happy. Let's make the taxpayer happy. I don't know how many deer it'll save. Makes the taxpayer happy. So I would request, and I don't know if you guys will just assume my request or if I would need to make a motion.
No,
Have the board direct you to put a sign up at the woodlot there to make the residents happy. I will hold my motion for the next few months and see if you guys take care of it without a motion.
Well, we have to look and see if there's even a warrant for it to be there. So yeah, there's been a couple there, but is there a crossing? So a lot of times with the deer crossing signs, we'll make sure that there is. It's not just an isolated events happen twice, maybe in a month, but then there's never a deer there in the next couple years. Because we don't want people to look at a sign and then disregard it because there's never any.
And I fully agree with that. And I can tell you each location that is a natural funnel on that
Yeah.
road because I ride them every day and I'm also a hunter and I'm also a wildlife breed. So yeah, I can tell you everyone. That is one of them.
Yeah, so we'll just make sure it is warranted based on those facts and following the standard for the manual that we have to
Right.
apply for the signs. But yeah, we will look at it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good enough.
yeah, because it's really critical for us to follow, because if not, then we get into a lot of legalities. If for some reason, all of a sudden people say, well, you need to put a sign out every time a deer crosses. Well, okay, 5 miles down the way, there's no sign. I hit a deer. Now,
How come you didn't put out a sign? Right. And I've had
So-
people address me and they want a sign out and I'm like, I can't push it. I can't justify it in that location. That is not a natural funnel. It's not natural habitat that they're constantly using year round. It's a fluke, migratory. I'm not pushing it and I don't bring it forward.
So what we'll do is we'll have we'll do warrants and have a policy so you guys can see what we're looking at as what warrants wildlife crossing signs. Corridors are very critical. You are right. That is one of the main things you're looking at. If it's a corridor, that could warrant a sign. Just because somebody saw a rare deer there doesn't warrant it.
Did we ever, backtracking something completely different, when we did the open range on Garrison and we were talking to those people, we were talking about potentially putting up cattle drive and process signs that can be folded down, and then when they're doing a cattle drive, they can open it up, which everybody driving by is, oh, don't recognize that sign. Have we ever done anything with that? On those roads that have,
Put those up, but I don't remember.
I don't know if we put them up on Garrison. We'll have to look. I know we have them on Centerville.
like I say, we talked about it on Centerville. I don't know that the people that do the drive, the Kaisers do a drive down Harms, but I don't know that they're interested. I know Horseshoe Bend gets a drive. Garrison was a big one
And
because
Gilmer.
that's a tight, fast paved. So, I don't know what logistics would go into that, but it sounds like a really good idea that I hope doesn't get lost.
And now you're
Even
in
though
the
most of them are
signs.
probably voting for Ron over there, it still needs done. But other than that, thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
anything else?
thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
Should we?
We have a lot here, and I guess we have the Water Conservancy Board applicant in the room, and I don't know if he's hanging around just in case we have questions. I don't know if we need a motion for approval of that, or you're just wanting conversation today and a motion tomorrow. I don't have a problem with the appointment, so
I don't either.
I'm saying we can make whatever decision on that. So if he's got other things to do, he can.
I appreciate that. Do
Do
you?
you need a motion on
Yeah.
that, or are we just gonna put it on the agenda for approval next week? You're just looking for a verbal today. That's what I thought. Okay.
Okay, so we'll make a motion on it next week. Any questions? Or- no?
I'm
Okay,
No,
that's
just,
good.
I know that the problem is the training, it's 40 hours of training and they only do it once a year. And it's usually at the beginning of the year, so.
Yep, and we've
it doesn't
talked
fix
about
the
that.
problem.
We've talked
right-
about
right
the
now.
training and I think you have a committed participant.
At least for now, we might need to get a mental health evaluation done on him, but
Why? Okay, so we have.
he's laughing. He knows what I'm talking about.
I'd like to let the other things go right now and have the departments do their updates if they'd like, so we can get them back to work.
Hmm.
If we can move forward with that. And in the scope of things, Scott, you were actually before Heather, if that's okay with you, Heather. Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm sorry I was late. I tuned in right when the technical difficulties were going on. I wasn't sure where you're at on the agenda when you came back.
We're not sure right now.
Did you get through the moratoriums? Okay, so I assume that's what we're on now?
We're gonna put
This is just a planning director
update.
update.
Okay, great. I'm going to focus on primarily on staffing because that's something going on right now. We had an excellent interview last week with a potential assistant planner who we're going to offer the job to. She'd be coming in we're offering at step 2. So it's on the low end. So budget wise, it's very good. We're very pleased with her. She's had relevant experience and I think will fit in really well with the team. So we're excited about that if she does accept. Again, to say anything more at this point, I wanted to give you something that I do need to walk you through.
Sure.
Not as self-explanatory as I would like, because I was scrambling over last Friday and today to put it together. This is in regard to the long-range planning position or utilizing consultants for the upcoming grant projects that we have. We had Commissioner Zoller participated in a follow-up interview with a couple other directors, and I thought it went very well. He continued to seem like he'd be a good fit for the long-range planner if we chose to go this route. I think Commissioner Zoller, if you want to say anything, you can, but I think both of us feel pretty good about him, especially in comparison to going with a consultant, that he would be able to do a good job. So walking through this is just some of the financial aspects of it. And this is not been checked by finance or anything. This is me just using calculations, sometimes using the numbers provided by finance previously for the budget year. So this first table shows the grants we're expecting to receive over the next, through Q2 of 2027. The CE is for the clean energy grant. That's the $350,000 grant for the comprehensive plan updates and the solar ordinance. I put guaranteed and non-guaranteed. The non-guaranteed is the portion that we don't know for sure we'll get. It'll be dependent on continued funding of the program. There is a ballot measure in place to repeal it. So it's possible that last 104,000 that you see, 52,000, Q3, Q4 of 2025, and then the next 2 quarters might not be there. So we need to keep that in mind. So then the periodic update grant is a grant that we are going to be receiving from the state to do. It's intended for critical areas ordinances, but since we'll have that done, we'll have the ability to determine with the state what our other priorities are. I can't assume right now that we would be able to do it fully with staff or how many consultants, not knowing what that would be. I do think if we had a full-time staff on board, we'd likely be able to tailor it to utilize all or most of that money because we'd have the capacity at that point. So if you go down a little bit, that's kind of just tells us the money we're working with over the next 2.25 to 2 3/4 years. The senior planner position to which this would be to match the salary that this person previously had at their last job, or actually to fall just under it, would be grade 71, step 6. The total cost of the position, you see the salary there and the total cost of the position. That's based on the spreadsheet we got for our budget information, because we did have a senior plan, long-range planner in the proposed budget because we wanted to keep it as a placeholder. And that was well before any of this came up. We had that at grade 71, step 3. And so I just had to make some adjustments. So it is somewhat approximate, but it's close to what the total estimated cost would be from the information we got from Jen, the spreadsheet. The clean energy budget, this is a $350,000 grant. What we're assuming at this point is about 120,000 for staff, 150,000 for a consultant. That can change based on if we do it with the consultant we propose, because this is deliverable based. It's not based, so products. So we get paid for the products we produce. We don't have to submit receipts. We don't have to submit time cards. So it's getting the work done, whoever does it. So there's some flexibility to use more consultant, less consultant, and use more staff time. We have 45,000 built in for the GIS from our own county public works department. And then there's a 10% administration fee that comes out off the top of that grant. As you go down, if you look at a consultant at $125 per hour, that's based on the consultant contract. We right now have the highest level is around $180. An assistant level planner is a little under 100, but the senior level planner, which is what we'd expect to average out at least, that's my assumption, is around 125 per hour. So at that rate, we get 1,200 hours for $150,000 consultant work. If we utilize staff time at the rate that I showed above at $53.16 per hour, we'd end up with 2,822 hours. So just utilizing staff will get us a lot more hours. The other benefits that I see, you have someone here who we know we can make sure they're focused on the work, and they'd be less likely to use templates. It'd be a lot more based on research of multiple other codes and doing the work ourselves to make sure that our documents are truly tailored to what this community values. Consultants can do a good job, and as long as our committees and staff are making sure we review it, and planning commission, you can certainly take a template and that a consultant provides and make it appropriate locally. So I'm not concerned about that. Either way, we'll get a good product. If you go down, this next section shows again, the clean energy grant, and the non-G is for non-guaranteed, and the periodic update grant to show the total amount that we could expect over the upcoming time period. Obviously, conservatively, it's good to go with the guaranteed, not the non-guaranteed. But these next few bullet points are just meant to show an example. So if we take the $405,000 and we do get that, it could fund a senior planner through Q2 of 2027. So for two and 3/4 years from now, with about 100,000 left for supporting other staff. Alternately, if we wanted to just fund that position through these funds, of course, if we hired this position, we'd be looking from day one at the next step to make sure we could continue to fund as much as possible through grants. But if we only took it through 2026, so 2 years and 3 months, we'd be able to fully fund the senior planner position with about 155,000 for other staff, myself primarily. Alternately, if you go down the next line, if we go with the guaranteed money, we could fund the position for the 2.75 years with 20,000 left for supporting staff. So basically that would only fund the position. Or if we went through 2026, there'd still be about $75,000 for staff. Just some considerations. Alternately, if we decided, no, we want to go with consultant, we won't get as much bang for the buck because you do pay a lot more for the consultant work, but we would still get the products done that we're looking for. I would anticipate still, if we don't have a long-range planner on board, would just throw it out there that the 150,000, we'd probably spend half that on consultants for the upcoming 150,000 that we're going to be getting for the periodic update. It may not be, we might be able to do it all ourselves, but based on staff time, we just don't know and what it would be. So that's why I'm putting for 225,000, that 405,000 would provide $180,000 for county staff, or the lower amount would provide 81,400 if we through. I put both those through Q2 of 2027 because that's when the grant funding goes through. So that to me, the difference is we would, if we didn't go with a consultant or if we didn't hire staff, we would save $25,000 to $80,000 over the next 2.75 years that could be used for our own staff. Again, primarily me, additionally than what it was. So it's about annually about a $9,000 to $29,000 difference, depending on the guaranteed or not. So that's kind of the cost of having a staff person, having more hours from that person, potentially getting a lot more work done. But either way, I see a path to getting what we were required to do by the grant done. So I still know it's preliminary, but I wanted to show you this. Obviously, my preference would be to hire staff, but I know that you are looking at it from a whole different angle than I am this.
And just to do a little bit of background for Scott, because I sat in on that interview, I think we were very lucky to find this person during your interview quest. It was kind of like, how is this happening? We're finding so many good people, but I think he was a really, really good fit for the jobs that we're asking him to do. He's very, very interested and has a background in the long range planning and the comp plans and the solar. He has touched all of the things that we would be asking to do before, so he has a good background. He's very studious. I think he'd be really good for just entrenching in on those items and working solely on those to get those done. And we've been waiting a lot of years and keep shoving them off. I think it's a timely option that he came forward, and we might be able to utilize him. And I do like the look that we're using a person in-house. I think it dedicates them more to our community, dedicates them to that product more than a consultant. I really like having somebody in-house. And as far as him only being here the 2.5 years, I don't think that was a worry to him. I think he's kind of adventuresome. He's looking forward maybe to moving to the Pacific Northwest, and he has things that he'd like to check out here. And longevity wasn't a real concern of his.
That's the impression I got as well. Of course, anyone would like to have it guaranteed, but he did seem to be more interested in getting toward the Northwest.
Well, I'm gonna make Mr. Wagner very upset because I agree with you.
Oh.
And
Are we getting along?
and we're working together on an item we agree on. Which happens more than the items we disagree on. I agree. Thank you for the detail. I was through with it and you were about 1/3 of it. So I just kind of waited for you to get done with your.
I'm glad it was more self-explanatory than I thought.
The kicker to me is the amount of dollars you spend for a consultant. You get far more bang for your buck out of the employee. We can get far more work done, far more hours out of them than hiring a consultant and paying some corporation to hire an employee for us. Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm a yes. I don't have anything else to say.
Mr. Anderson.
Where did you get the 133%? Did that come from the auditor?
That came from the worksheets that we had to start the whole budgeting process, where it showed each position. So it'd show assistant, associate, all our positions. It showed the salary. It showed the hourly wage, and then it went into all the benefit calculations. Some were set static numbers, others were percentage based. And that was based on that chart. That was
Okay,
what
just
the
wanted to
others were
make sure it was
roughly.
based on a real number and it was shows us something.
It is rough because I didn't go through each static one. I compared it mostly to these other senior planner positions and the percent
Okay.
based from those.
Next question. So with your numbers here, and I'm only looking at through 2026, 2027 is a ways out and everything could change by then. But if we do the 105,000 and 326,000, does that have anything in there still built in for consultants? Are we assuming that it'll either be this long range planner or it'll be supporting county staff, or is it
Right.
just?
I looked through our proposal and deliverables and also did some quick research online for how much has been done already for battery energy storage systems, for solar siting. There's a lot that's already been done. So I think a consultant likely would do research into what's been done and do theirs based on that. So this, as Commissioner Zoller said, the person we're looking at is very studious, has a really good background in research and writing. So my assumption would be that we would not, if we hired that planner, would not use consultants at all.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that's the direction, because if we have a consultant cost that likely would need to be included in there, is taking away from the other supporting staff.
No, I think that was important. As I looked at it, that had to be one or the other.
Do you have any experience in grant writing that they might be able to look for more grant options out there? Do they have
For their
any
own?
knowledge in that? I mean, like this grant fell out of the sky, landed on our face and started to wiggle, which is the only reason we knew about it.
Mm.
If they would have some kind of capacity to see what else might be out there.
I don't know if he has direct grant writing experience, but based on his writing and research, I'm have no doubt that he could.
Would just an idea I'm throwing
It's a
out.
great idea.
I don't have good ideas, sir.
Okay.
I guess the only other thing is when we were looking at this and I was hoping for hope, knowing, you know, the hit to the budget that yours creates, the 405,000 with 225 for consulting services gives us 180,000 for county staff, which goes a long ways towards filling the budget hole that your office provides. And so I can say that, you know, when it came to this long range planner position, I was one of the first people on board and wanted it. I'm definitely willing to try it out with the knowledge that we do have grants to pay for it. And so if we didn't have the grants to pay for it, I couldn't be in favor of it. And so you've done a good job showing that we do have the dollars to pay for it. I'm just sad to see that we won't be able to use as much on the other county staff that I was hoping to. But I think if it gets us where we need to go and hopefully gets us over this hump, that all this planning documents that are, you know, piling up on us, I think we need to do it.
And I have a side question, which I'm sure we will delve into as we get into budget. Do you know the numbers off the top of your head on what your expenses are versus what your revenue is
I
for
don't off the
permits?
top of my head. I could find that out though.
Well, I'm sure we will delve into that as we cycle to see if there needs to be a adjustment in permitting costs or something, so.
Yeah, no,
Be
no
prepared for
planning
that
department
discussion.
pays for itself, unfortunately. Without-
Otherwise, nothing would ever get built.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Did we want to do the resolutions while he was here?
We can. I will just read them as they are here. Madam Chair, I move that we sign a resolution in the matter of enacting an interim zoning controls for the bulk storage and warehousing of lithium batteries within the unincorporated areas of Klickitat County, Washington.
And I will step down in second. Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to pass out some documents to my seatmates. This is just for background information. This is a document, and I've also provided it to staff to be entered into the record, but it's from the American Planning Association on zoning practices for battery energy storage systems. One thing that this does not consider, this is for lithium ion only. And we also have sodium nickel chloride batteries, sodium sulfur batteries, and more importantly, flow batteries that were not included in either of these moratoriums because they're for this moratorium, the other one is more less direct. This is talking about lithium only. So I have an issue that we're picking one battery over another where the other batteries have the same issues. We also had conversation this morning, public comment this morning, that many people have more batteries than what is included in here. And so we would in essence be making it illegal for all these individuals and farmers and ranchers in as well as contractors who have a lot of these 12-volt lithium ion batteries. And so I also found that, you know, in looking into this and the zoning practices that this isn't a zoning issue, it's a building issue because it's what's inside the buildings that are the issues. And I would direct everyone to inside this packet. It references the NFPA standard 855, which is the National Fire Protection Association. The standard 855 is the standard for the installation of stationary energy storage systems. And that is something that the county can adopt. That is something that we could, and the adoption of that would cover all of this in one fell swoop. And it's national. And it would fix both of these issues in one fell swoop. And if we were going with a direction, I find that is probably far more logical, rational than creating a moratorium for the storage of something that is so movable. That's not a planning issue. It's a building issue. It's what you do inside a building. Because nobody comes in and would put forward a planning issue for that. And even if we don't, as a county, adopt standard 855, it's something that during a conditional use permit, which the planning director has stated that any BESS system would require, that is something we could have as conditions as part of that. And so it would still cover us. It's not a blanket. Government just doesn't have these blanket issues. So I think with that, I can't vote in favor of this. But I just wanted to make it clear my rationale why.
No comments.
And I have no comments. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Opposed.
Oh, opposed?
Nay.
Reject.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Did, Commissioner Anderson, did you, give the planning director a copy of this?
Not
document?
yet. I've been talking with the building director.
Okay. If we can, give the planning, I mean, I can give him my copy or you can give him a
can have
copy.
We can-
He needs to have a copy to move forward and take to the planning commission for their discussions.
Absolutely.
And they might come back with a recommendation to add these other critters in there. I don't know. That's their choice. With that, I would move forward and make a motion that the board signs a resolution in a matter of enacting interim zoning controls in regard to the siting, installation, or development of battery energy storage systems BESS within the unincorporated areas of Klickitat County, Washington.
I'll step down in second. Motion in a second. Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to moratorium number 2, I will again mention that BESS does not have a definition in the language. And so that creates an issue. If we follow what NFPA standard 855 shows for battery energy storage systems, that would clearly and easily include pumped hydro that falls underneath the standard for NFPA 555. So my question would be is, do we really want to create a moratorium when the county has in the past taken a position in favor of this project of statewide significance? We're in essence saying that we would not process, or we've already taken a position that we will not process an application, but now we are taking a position that we are making the zoning illegal for any pumps storage hydro project to go forward at this time, and that I cannot gainsay.
Further discussion?
I would just disagree with Commissioner Anderson's assumption. I would also say that I don't foresee a permit for pump storage in the next year or two. I also would say I can't imagine the planning commission doesn't take up this issue and have a answer back before the board well before that ever happened. Or ever a permit was asked. So I don't see the concern that Commissioner Anderson sees, and that ends my comment.
And so, motion in a second. All those in favor? Aye, opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank
And I have
you.
a copy of what he gave right here.
I'll
so
come
take
grab
take
that. The next step is we'll need to schedule the public hearing on both of these within the 2 months. So sometime by October 20th. I could put that in the request for next week on your agenda. If you'd want to give me any guidance as to when you'd like to have that, or we can have that discussion of when next week and then have it in your packet the following.
It would be I would say sooner the better. I'm fine with it being 2 weeks from now. I don't see there need to be an afternoon. I mean, we can do an afternoon public hearing, but I don't see the need for an evening public hearing because I believe we have board the majority of the board going to, regardless of what's said at the public hearing, push it to the planning commission, who will have their own hearings. So I guess I'd say I'd prefer it not get kicked down the road terribly long, but I also understand that the moratorium only lasts for 6 months without an extension and a work plan. So it comes up to you on where your work plan fits in the planning commission. So you may want to drag this one out a month and a half to make sure you have enough time on that end but I would say sooner rather than later is my opinion. And then whatever Tuesday works is fine with me too.
Great.
I would just say as soon as possible, being the fact that we are taking away people's private property rights without giving them the opportunity for public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Leanne, if we can forego you for a bit, I'm going to move forward with Heather. Let her get back to work. Our county auditor, Heather Joby, thank you for the election update. And
Morning.
thank you for your patience.
Not a problem.
Mm.
All right, before I start on the recount, I just want to clarify some of our discussion from last week. I fact checked myself. We did in fact get even year funding passed, so we are getting state money on even years. And I neglected to say that there is an EMS levy on the November ballot as well. And we actually have 10 presidential candidates instead of the 11 that I suggested we were going to have. So
Who dropped off?
When is the last time in Washington state that somebody can drop out? What is the date for that? Or pull their name off the ballot? Both questions.
before the state certifies it, and they certified it,
A couple weeks ago.
no, it was like right before I came over, which
Okay.
is, there was a lot of communication back and forth, which is why I thought somebody was still on the ballot that wasn't,
Okay.
but no, so.
Was it RFK that dropped off?
No, he's still on the ballot because when they were trying to certify, his campaign still either didn't respond to the Secretary of State's office or indicated that they wanted his name kept on the ballot. So he's still on there. It was a different party, but I don't know off the top of my head who that party was.
Not Boothead. Boothead ain't running for president. He's governor, I think, or something.
I
You know the
also,
guy that wears the boot on his head? What's his, you guys know what I'm talking about, don't you?
What?
Read the voter guide. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I know nobody that I would reference as Boothead.
He used, that used to be the title he went by. That was his assumed name. I'll bring it in for you.
Okay.
It'll be an education next week. He went by Boothead. That was his terminology, not mine.
Gosh.
Moving on.
Okay.
Google it.
Oh, he's probably there. That's why I'm laughing.
So we had our recount last Wednesday and we certified our results on Thursday. The canvassing board met again to certify them. At this point, the state has about 50% of the recount completed. They will certify by noon tomorrow. All counties have to certify by today. So in our recount, we had 3 variances. 2 of the variances were what I would call an interpretation. Somebody colored in the write-in box, but didn't put a name in. So when it was cleared through the tabulation system, that box was basically unchecked because it doesn't truly count as a write-in. The manual recount, the groups of counters indicated that those were write-in candidates because the box was colored in.
Was another box colored in or just? the
No,
box?
just that one.
Mhm.
So it was tabulated as a resolved write-in by the machine. It was tabulated as an undervote because there really truly was no vote. The other variant was a ballot, and we were able to confirm that the ballot we suspected was the issue was indeed the issue. We went back and pulled the images. A voter used a light red pencil, and the machine was unable to detect the markings in the target boxes. So our recount certification included 1 more vote for Jamie Herrera Butler for the position. So the 2 candidates in question, Dave Upthegrove and Sue Peterson, none of their votes, those numbers stayed the same.
So what happens if somebody circles one name and then they circle the write-in as well, but they don't vote for anybody?
Then it's the candidate is
The candidate
counted.
gets it. Okay.
Mhm. So statewide, about half the counties are done and have certified, and it looks like at this point, the preliminary votes have resulted in 4 more votes for Dave Upthegrove and 1 fewer vote for Sue Peterson, and those were all voter intent issues. So
Gonna make for an interesting race.
Those are very hard days. I'm thankful for all the people that participate in those.
They are long,
They're grueling.
they're long days and it's a lot of manual labor.
Yeah, they were worn out by the end of the day. They did a great job.
Yes. So always remember to use dark black or blue ink when you
Yes.
color in your square.
Go ahead.
Sit up there.
Okay.
Yes.
I said, I'm not giving him the name. He had his own name.
Yeah, no, I don't believe he's one of the candidates.
I missed
I-
that one.
I would remember that voters pamphlet.
Well, he doesn't have the boot in his head on the voter panel.
Mm.
I'll get it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Curious how many votes he gets.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Not from me.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, Mr. Van Cleve. Uh-oh.
Bad sign.
At
Throwing things.
least you have paper clips on them.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
First, the interviews, all those who have been invited have responded and are still interested. One would request a Zoom meeting. But I haven't asked you officially if you would allow that. Are you willing to allow one of the candidates to have a Zoom meeting?
I personally, as this is potentially a first interview that could potentially turn into a second interview later, I have no problem with a Zoom meeting on first interviews for people that don't live in the area.
Okay, thank you. One of you has to leave on that date by 3:45. So I've been able to
It's a little later than that now,
Okay, so if
probably 4:30.
oh, okay, then I think we can start at noon. I'm trying to allow a little time before the first interview, a little time in between the interviews, and then time at the end I can work around that. I'll talk to you more.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably closer to 4:45, but I'm saying 4:30 to be safe.
Perfect.
But I think we can do it all.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. I sent the questions out last week. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at them yet. Sent them I'm allowing about an hour for an interview, which is a little longer than we normally do, but there's a lot of good questions in here. So if you determine that we need to prioritize them, we can do that. I'll send them to the other two on the interview panel this week, as well as the folks that were.
The only thing I saw that I can see an issue in those questions is they were very, very good questions, but they're also very detailed. That if your plan is to read the question to the person, I personally, if I was the person getting interviewed, I would have liked it if you have 10 of them like on a cue card and you read it to them, but you also hand them the question so they can read along. They can refer back to it while they're answering the question and then move on to the next question, which you hand them that question as well. You see what I'm saying? Because they are very wordy questions.
We can make that.
And I think that could speed up response times as well.
And did you see the question, the behavioral health question? And is that okay to add that? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I think we're on board. Everything's scheduled, and I'll get the information out to the other two on the interview panel, and everything looks like a go. As far as and thank you for that. As far as this week's jail update, so we're finding now we're getting down to some of the finer details of what we're going to need when the transition's over. One is a new software for language translation. So I've added that to the task list to give to the jail administrator. An MOU was sent to me from not from Skamania County. Skamania County has sent Klickitat County an MOU for emergency housing of jail inmates, and it was forwarded to me. So, I mean, it's still under the control of the sheriff. So I guess the options are because it's gonna have to go to PA review, give to the sheriff and have him process it. or we can wait until you are in charge of the jail, or maybe we can start the PA review and then wait to have the commissioner sign it. So I'm just trying to, we're kind of in a weird space here.
Who directed Skamania County to do this?
I think that's a good question. There's been ongoing discussions. I know the Safe Committee's talked about what do we do with inmates in an emergency. We had one last year where the jail froze out. I don't know if it's something we've always had and this is a new one, or if somewhere during, over the last year or so, we thought
Who sent it to you?
Carmen,
At Skamania County, who sent it?
I don't know. It went to
Oh.
the sheriff's department and they sent it to me.
Okay.
So I'm just, I mean, so
Either way, they would need to deal with whatever they wanted to deal with now, because it's still under their control. We would have a separate MOU for whoever we wanted to be our emergency provider.
yeah,
When we
and
take
it could
a-
be more than one jail. You may have one with multiple jails.
Mhm.
Well, yeah,
opposed to,
because, you know, Skamania might not be able to take 35 people.
yeah, Benton, Yakima, other jails
Yeah.
that you may, as well as Norcor, in an emergency situation. So, I mean, if the sheriff proceeds with this, odds are we'll have to turn right around and change it, and redo it to reflect the change. So
So let me clarify in my mind for sure. This is a request asking for an emergency. We would send them to Skamania County, or Skamania County asking us for housing. Emergency.
the Skamania County, Klickitat County each operate a jail. Recognize emergencies may occur that make it advisable to evacuate all or part of its jail. Each party wishes to establish an arrangement where it can have its inmates temporarily housed at each other's jail.
Okay,
So it's reciprocal.
yep, okay.
Probably be a good idea to have these with Yakima and Benton
Multiple
and-
sources, yes.
But
Yeah,
for
because I-
this one, should I hang on to it for now, or get PA review, have the sheriff deal with it, and then we'll
I
change it?
mean, technically it's the sheriff's baby now. I don't know when the board plans on taking over the jail, but technically we should have that legal reviewed and in place the day we take over the jail, ready to sign as the Department of Corrections, in my opinion, along with potentially Yakima and everybody else.
I would prefer to get it over to legal for their review currently, and then we can take action at the appropriate time.
If it's a good boilerplate, then it may work once
Yeah.
this is approved for other counties. Okay, thank you for that. Interlocal with Benjamin discussion with the mayor. We've agreed that Klickitat County will take the lead on revising the interlocal agreement once the jail, because it's now between Bingen White, the Bingen, city of Bingen and the sheriff. And so the mayor said that they request that when that change is appropriate, that we'll take the lead to revise that agreement to reflect the changes. So I just want to capture that on here so we.
How many, they're behind a few years of paying that, correct?
I don't know. We have an agreement interlocal with Bingen. We don't with White Salmon, and I think the one with Golden Dale might have expired or might not have. I think maybe have another year. So they're all.
Well, I know expired contracts and whatnot, but whether they've actually kept doing the payments, even though the contract's
Yeah.
expired, is a different question.
I couldn't speak to that.
That goes over in the to-do box.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good question. I just don't have the answer to that. And then the jail administrator we've talked about. And then impact bargaining with the union. We have a closed session this afternoon. I'll not waste your time today or this morning, and we'll talk about more of that later. Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. I yield my time to Leanne to talk about.
Actually, I would suggest we move forward. We have a presentation at 11:50. Well, we got 7 minutes. But the person's here, it looks like, so,
Move forward.
okay, or after if they're short, that's fine.
So presentation with Hannah Joy. Yeah, sure.
If you're ready.
I won't make you sit through all of our business.
Not as excited. I mean, we just had an election update and your name wasn't given. I voted for you. You know.
You. So I'm the chair of the Klickitat Community Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board, and we are kicking into gear this year and next. Some of the things that we wanted to do was make a logo that would be easily recognizable for the community, something that was bright, cheerful, something that indicated who we were. And so that's what's going to be in the first part of your sheet is this sunflower with the the KSDDAB. And I'm going to go through this quickly. So if you move over, our current objectives right now are to create this logo, get a physical and digital newsletter going, a poll to find where we're lacking. We feel that a lot of our services aren't being reached out to. We don't know why. So we want to focus on the community and reach out to our Hispanic community and attract new board members. So we have a brand new website, extremely proud of it. It was actually created by one of our own self-advocates. And it's beautiful. We really encourage you to go there. The calendar is updated regularly to make sure that both counties, anything that has to do with or surrounding KSDDAB will be on that calendar. So lots of resources. The poll we would like to do is kind of a two-tiered poll, not only what services are needed in Klickitat and Skamania, but is there one over the other? Are we not meeting certain needs? Are we not meeting certain ethnic communities' needs? Is there a language barrier? Trying to figure that out so that we can make sure we can reach them. New members, we're always looking for new members. We are 1 member shy of a quorum. We are supposed to be a 9-member board. We have 8. So we are really looking for an advocate here in Klickitat County. We have several in Skamania, but we would love to have some on this side. And that also being said, we do have a commissioner that comes to our every other month meetings from Skamania County, but we don't have one from Klickitat. Unsure if it just was an issue with scheduling. Maybe we didn't get on the board assignment for y'all. So would love to try to prevent that. Have you guys come in, at least hear what resources are available. We are always trying to bring in people so that you have better knowledge of what we are, what we do, and what we can offer your constituents who have developmental disabilities, self-advocates, and other advocates of them.
When are your meetings?
So on the very back, you'll have a newsletter. And on the back of that is our happenings. We just had a meeting, so the next one will be in October.
Okay.
And it'll be on the website as well.
Okay, so are they always on Wednesdays or Fridays, or when are they?
They are. No,
Okay.
you're gonna put me on the spot. I don't actually know. It's the first Wednesday of every month from
Okay.
3:30 to 5:30.
Okay, thank you.
And we'd really appreciate that. And I'm gonna leave some packets with you guys.
And that might,
Your meetings only in person or do you Zoom them as well?
They're only in Zoom
Oh.
currently. Yeah,
that's nice. Yeah.
it's more helpful when it's such a large area where
Yeah.
getting people.
And is this something we should be adding to our board assignments?
It's that's a good discussion for the board to have, kind of like we do with our senior advisory board,
Right.
where we each go every,
Sure. We can
twice a year kind of thing and rotate it through. So we each go at least once per year to the senior advisory board. We can vote to do the same with this.
I would love
Nothing
that.
holding us back.
Mm.
Um,
The staff
I'm
can add it
I'm
to our
fine with it,
list.
just working out the logistics.
Wonderful. Good. Thank you.
Well, thanks for.
Well, I appreciate it. And if you have anybody who needs directing, please direct them to us. And
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Good to see you.
You too.
You guys, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
Do you have?
Do you guys, reach out and look for like grant funding for projects and to build swing sets for kids in wheelchairs and things like that? Is that something you guys do?
I don't know if we have that ability, but what we do is we support all of the other resources that get grant money to help specifically. So K through 12, and then also transitioning out of high school into the workforce for our developmentally disabled community members. So we could look into that.
Well, it's a matter of whether you have the bandwidth with the number of people you have to go into that. But I know at least for the parks in Klickitat County, good luck finding one that's ADA compatible. It is an obvious problem. I mean, technically find one that's toddler compatible, so that's another problem, but that's not in your wheelhouse. But parks is something that I believe in, and that's just a need I see. So anyway, I'm just planting a seed.
Yeah, I'll talk to the board. We're small, but we're pretty mighty.
That's good terminology for yourself, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Why you had my vote.
Okay,
Yeah, if the board is okay, I'm fine with working with
yeah,
putting it on a rotation there
I
and
think we should,
fitting it in like we do with the senior thing and.
sure, especially Zoom, that makes it easy.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah. Leanne. Thank you for being patient, Leanne.
Now I'm stuck in all the Google photos of Boot Head here. Scrolling,
Now they're just gonna
watching.
keep coming up.
'Cause he's in protests and all sorts of things, so it's
Okay.
interesting character.
I just haven't given a motor pool update lately, so I just wanted to let you guys know where we were at with that. Out of the 5 cars, we have 3 that are available for us to check out. Building department still has an Explorer and of course George.
Are those staying in those departments permanently now, or are those coming back? I know building is getting a new truck,
Yes,
but does that mean they're gonna give the one we gave them back?
I believe so.
Which
But
is
as of
unfortunate.
for right now, I mean,
Now we're gonna have another car sitting in the parking lot.
yeah. And with that being said, I mean, for the most part, we haven't really had a whole lot of checkouts at the same time, so.
Mhm.
And it's usually the 17 Explorer that gets checked out the most.
And I say, I go through every once in a while and look at the, click that on my calendar so I can go through and I'm like, we could probably do with 1 car. But I could see needing a second, maybe a third, but
Well, and honestly, the environmental health just gave back the Traverse. They had been using it while Diana was waiting for her car to, they had just purchased the car. So also, I mean, so we had 3 cars really checked out and 2 sitting.
I can tell you, at least from my perspective, I feel sorry for whatever department comes in here asking for a new car for their VR&R program.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with George, but also with George's vehicle, he's the only one who hasn't had the fleet software put on it. So I don't know if that needs to also be.
I would be my recommendation that the board give directive to the IT director to make that happen, because that is a safety issue. If somebody goes missing, we can at least find their vehicle.
Yeah.
And he's in a situation where that is an absolute must as far as I'm concerned.
And I'd like an update from what we've learned from the fleet software for the money that we're spending on.
I thought when we originated this program, it was supposed to be a 1-year update, which would be an IT thing, not a her thing. She's just in charge of our little fleety thing over here.
Well, and we do have, Elisa does have access to the fleet software, so we can see,
Well, that's what I thought we were gonna look at over a year, is all the cars that are out in other departments. Let's look and see actually how many miles were driven, how many days a week was it driven? Do they really need it all week, or they use it like we're finding out? We had 2 of them that were driven 1,500 miles a year in the same department, has 2 vehicles driven 1,500 miles a
Well,
year.
and honestly, we're already way over the checkout limit of what we had last year. So I think as of right now, we're at 52 and we still have the rest of the year. But I think last year it was only like 27 or 28.
Well, my curiosity is, I want to make sure that we don't have other vehicles out there parked on other lots, not our little 5-car fleet.
Yeah.
But other vehicles in other departments parked on lots, sitting there not getting used.
Right.
Because if that's the case, they need to get sucked over here and these things need to go to the auction.
Yeah.
To save taxpayer. That was the purpose of the fleet management software, along with when it does go to auction, we can provide maintenance logs out of the fleet management
Right,
software
and
to get a higher value.
Yeah, and I do have a log as well of everything that has been done to the vehicles because we've just taken them up to the shop here. As of right now, every vehicle's up to date on all of their stuff. So, and we actually,
What did they charge you for the detail, by the way?
yeah, I was just gonna get to that. We actually took 3 of the cars to get detailed at Golden Auto, and I believe it was $200 a car, but they were pretty bad.
And the
So-
plan is just do that once a year or something?
Well, yeah, and I kind of have just been checking them out and telling people, please do not put a dog in the vehicle. Please do not eat in the vehicle. So,
Don't
yes.
mind a little food, but why do they have a dog in the vehicle?
I'm
It's a county
not
vehicle
sure.
used a county Yeah, if we have a dog in the vehicle, we got a problem. I would think.
Well, we will know now if we have a dog in the vehicle because they're spotless. So, but anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Interesting. Okay.
So staff heard in the back that we'd like an update on the fleet software. It's all right. It'll follow up with an
Yeah.
email then.
Like I said, and my main thing is those
need to come up with the
departments
table.
or offices that have vehicles to make sure they're actually being used. I think they are, but I need to confirm. We have, how often does the one we have checked out or our fleet vehicle in White Salmon actually get used? It didn't get used in White Salmon. We brought it over here. Yeah.
Okay.
How often does WSU check out a vehicle? Never? Because that's a question in the WSU contract was, I have no problem putting in their use of our fleet vehicle and paying for gas for 4-H travel and that kind of stuff. So I was curious if they'd ever checked it out. Right, but they would too, but we would put it in the contract
That we would,
as part of the budgeting for WSU that here's your gas allowance, just like we put in everybody else's. It's just a matter of the contract currently says we'll pay for travel, and I would like it to be a little more specific, so we're not paying for 4-day beach weekend travels. I want to spell out what we're paying for, which to me is the vehicle and the gas that goes in it. Good to know.
You ended up doing it.
Instead of may I, dare I? We took travel out of that contract based on the feedback from the commissioners, the one I sent to the board chair for review to discuss with WSU. We just took travel out. It's covered by WSU.
It is absolutely
Rather than have
covered
it be
by WSU.
pre-approval and all that, we just.
As I said, my only thing is if 4-H wants to use the county fleet vehicle, I don't have a problem with it. But if we don't put any gas money in their budget, how do they put gas in the thing? So I mean, that's me, but if she's not checking it out now, I can't force anybody to use the fleet vehicle.
so
Okay.
Well, I think what I'm assuming is going to happen next is the board chair will have a discussion with WSU
Yes.
about travel because they cover it as well. We saw that last time. That may not be true for the 4-H coordinator position as opposed to the faculty position, but I think we'll get better clarification.
Keep it in mind when I talk.
Yeah,
about
like I said,
Okay.
fleet
Okay.
vehicle and gas, I have no problem with.
And if there's nothing else, Mr. Anderson has a second appointment after lunch.
After lunch or before lunch?
Where are you at?
during
Or
lunch.
during
So
lunch, sorry.
if you don't have anything else, I'd like to push everything off so I can get some lunch before this.
I think we caught up with our schedule
It's fine with me.
and we moved.
We move Richard,
We moved him
Hannah's
forward.
done. Yeah, that's fine.
I think we're doing good for the debacle we had this morning. So
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to recess for the lunch hour.
Oh, second.
motion and a second, any discussion?
Wow, we agreed again.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Gotta say aye. Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the regular meeting for the Klickitat County Commissioners, September 3rd, 2024. So we'll start with a approval of a boundary line adjustment with Rebecca Hale from the Building Department. Planning, right when it came out.
Hello, so this is a boundary line adjustment to adjust the boundary lines of parcels 03102398000200 and 03102398000100 off of Northwest Holly Lane. The proposed boundary line adjustment is located within a portion of section 23, Township 3, Range 10, Willamette, eastern of the Willamette Meridian in the White Salmon vicinity. The administrative review of the boundary line adjustment has been completed. Signatures have been obtained from the Road, Health, Planning Departments, and the Treasurer's Office. All conditions attached to the preliminary approval have been met. If the board finds that it's in the public's interest to approve the boundary line adjustment, a motion will need to be granted for final approval of BLA 2023-10. And this is, the applicants are Howley LLC and Jamie and Andrew Mack.
Any questions? I do not have any either today. Yeah, I looked up my
Other than my mic off.
report.
Mine was too. Madam Chair, having before us the approval of BLA 2023-10, the applicants Andrew and Jamie Mack and Haley LLC. My motion is to approve.
Second motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your special pen. Did you get a new one yet?
Let's get the budget. That is a very good answer. Okay, if I never get a pen, I'll just make her sign for me from now on, and that should make my job easier, so. This one's got a little love left in it, just not a ton.
You shook it. I'm trying to shake more out of it.
I find it better that you take your pen and you set it here and then so we can see, and then you take another pen and break it. To teach that one what's gonna happen to him if
Okay.
he doesn't pay attention. A little too violent for you guys.
Good. You'll be in trouble for pen abuse. Okay. Oh, Richard Foster from, yeah, I think we'll vote about it. Didn't get
I
away
almost
with it.
escaped.
Or we'll start off with natural resources.
Howdy, commissioners. Wanted to give you all some good news on a project that works for a very long time. This is the Pine Creek Fish Passage, which is something that's been in the works and been on lists for 20 years, right? It involves a restructuring of the highway and railroad crossing where Pine Creek empties into the Columbia about, let's say, 10 minutes east of Roosevelt. Right, there are 5 culverts basically that are involved in, the side of this ridge, and all of them are complete barriers to fish passage. And the project was basically, how do we restore fish passage? Do we either, do we restructure the culverts? Do we tear it up entirely and put a bridge there? Yakima Nation did a conceptual design all the way back in 2007, right? They gave the figures and estimates and, initial plans for how they would do that. Well, Eastern Klickitat Conservation District got funded by the Klickitat lead entity to do an initial design in 2021, right? On restructuring, basically creating a bridge for the railroad and the road. And Yakima Nation, which is ostensibly the letter of support that y'all will be looking at through the consent agenda, hasn't already been signed, right? Working with the Conservation District, working with the BNSF to do a final design off of the Conservation District's initial design to hopefully complete this project, right? That's been in the works for a very, very, very long time. And so that's hopefully good news, right? Additionally, similar updates to last time, Goldendale Park Plan. We just had our meeting 2 weeks ago, and mostly it was about what the role of the Parks and Rec District was going to be in order for us to then go to public involvement. It's looking better in terms of the Parks and Rec District being onto the plan. It is yet to be finalized, but once I have that information, we want the plan to be presentable to the public. And then there will be some sort of public involvement process that's going to take the place of definitely a series of public meetings. And then we're looking to do some sort of survey. We're not sure what the method of delivery for that survey is going to be yet. We don't know if it might be the smartest idea to do it on Facebook. But if that's the way of interacting and that's the only way to get people to respond, we might have to do that. So there's going to be a series of public meetings and then some sort of survey to demonstrate official public involvement so that we know, you know, what's on the plan should be on the plan. Is it desired to be on the plan, right? Is it interested by the
I
public?
wonder if you could set up a poll on Facebook and turn off comments.
That would be the plan, right? Any Facebook poll or survey it's going to have to deal with that, right? How do we don't want to get junk responses or spam or silly stuff, right? So that's going to be some talks that we're going to be doing, but we're going to get that information from the Parks and Rec District first, and then make the plan presentable, and formulate a plan for public involvement. Well monitoring letters are being sent out. Fall monitoring period is in October. And then I will then incorporate that data back into the analysis of the data for 10 years or so, right? And then in terms of I have no updates on some of our other projects, but everything is progressing, right? County endangered species list, other projects, nothing presentable for an update, right? But we should have one soon.
Thank you.
That's all I got. Questions?
What the hell happened? Notre Dame.
Oh. I'm used to it.
You needed to win that. I needed you to win that.
You bet on it. You never bet on A&M.
I did.
Never.
Anyway, back to the point.
Just like the Cowboys, they'll always let you down. Used to it.
Have you been paying attention to the changes in the Northwest Forest Plan or in the spotted owl, barred owl issues? Have you been?
No, sir, I haven't. Now spotted owl that's on my list of endangered species, of course, that I have to do a literature review for. But no, I can look into that.
You're doing a literature review for?
Well, I want to know, so as you probably know, right, when you look at endangered species that exist in the county or any endangered species that are identified through WDFW, some of them just happen to be on the list and nobody knows anything about them, right? So I want to make sure when I do that I know, where is it in the county? Why is it like this? Is it, what is its status? Why is it so, et cetera, right? So it's on the long list, but I will look into the Northwest Forest Plan.
Okay, thank you.
Work. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, economic development. For the Klickitat mill site, like we reported last time, we chose Mall, Foster, and Alongi to do the work. We were finishing up contract negotiations this week with them, and we should have a contract next week for you guys to sign. Affordable housing.
When do we expect that scope of work to be done and complete?
The timeline, if we don't have to do extensions, it should be completed by June 30th of 25. And their timeline, the firm's timeline actually did incorporate all of that, and they think that they're going to be able to complete that. So fingers crossed we don't have to do an extension.
The big issue with that for us, with how long it's been taking on these contract negotiations, is the contract that they had originally proposed did not meet up with the specific tasks that we have with ecology. And so we're trying to ensure that all the tasks that ecology is giving us, that those are being properly funded for with the money that they're giving us.
And ecology is actually going back and rewriting their contract with us to better match the scope of work that can be completed with the budget. So they were giving us too many tasks with the budget they awarded us. Affordable housing, we are working on finalizing the application for the ASH dollars with the edits and requests that were made by the KCPTA board. So that should be done soon. And we're going to be working on the resolutions to appoint the board members who have submitted applications. Those will include the WAGAP director, public health director, Mid-Columbia Housing Authority director, economic development director, and a community member at large. So we're moving forward on that. The ADO grant writer program, round 2 funding opened up. We have interest from both McKed and Mount Adams Institute for that funding. Jessica Mehta and the staff at McKed are in the process of writing up the application, and they'll submit it to us before we submit it up to the state, which is due June 30 or September 30th. City engagement, the city of Goldendale is requesting some assistance in finding funding for the incubator space. And we just began those conversations. That's an ongoing work. The department was able to attend a meeting along with Goldendale and Senator Maria Cantwell in regards to specific city projects they are seeking funding for. So at City of Goldendale, some additional funding. Any questions?
What is Goldendale's incubator? What are they looking at funding to do and improve in there?
They're looking for funding for infrastructure, like redos.
More specifically, right now, the ventilation system within the incubator space is more or less non-existent. With the original grant that we got from the state, the city was able to build out that almost 10,000 square foot facility, but it's just a shell. So there's a number of different incubator types of businesses that need proper ventilation.
So is it
outside.
ventilation, or are we dealing with heating and cooling? Or both?
From my understanding, is going to be ventilation, like their entire HVAC system out there. Which opening up the doors, I guess, does not suffice. Okay,
States
so
are probably what if you had another door on the other side, but.
good. So we've been Columbia Gorge Regional Airport. We've been fully focused on satisfying all of the SAC criteria, subject to award conditions is what they call it. We're in the midst of trying to get all of this solved or put in place by September 30th for the investment review committee ask in October for that budget shortfall for the regional airport, $900,000 for that specific project. We also have a small budget amendment in October that we're going to be submitting for just over $6,000. That's for the ADO contract that we had pushed through. We've satisfied everything with the ADO up at the state level for that ADO grant writer project. That if y'all remember that huge amount of contracting work that we had to do for that $6,000, we need to make sure that that is also reflected within the Fund 119 balance for this year. If we're along with that, if we're given the $45,000 for the ADO grant writer, $30,000 for McKed, $15,000 for Mount Adams, that would also require another budget, supplementary budget for next year. So,
Why would they not be able to do the grant themselves?
McKed?
We're sure that, say at McKed, if we don't choose to accept it, they can't apply for it, do all the paperwork, so.
No. It has to
go through our case, essentially.
has to. Yeah, so the ADO, just kind of the trend line for the Department of Commerce up at the state level, they have about it kind of goes back and forth, but they have about 110 different programs. And it's of their mind that they want to start using the ADOs a lot more as they have been doing. And so when they have these programs come out, it has to flow through the ADO. Otherwise, that's kind of like a red line for them. So. And then tomorrow we got a meeting with Skamania's EDC, and we're still in the midst, even though we have a new SBDC advisor, we're still trying to solidify that contract with us, Skamania, and as well as the SBDC folks. So that contract should be in front of y'all here in the next month or so, I would suspect. And that's about it. The last one would be our favorite project, Switzler. So there's going to be a funding update as far as the price increases, the rate schedule increases. I guess it's been some years since they've done that. And Ecology is still going to be paying for it. And the final, the draft EIS is still going to be completed and everything, but just forewarning y'all, you might be seeing that. So here within the next month.
So will that rate increase apply still within this time frame of the extension grant extension?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's rate increased by the contractor?
Yeah, there's a rate increase by the contractor. We did a pure time contract extension, but they haven't had any rate increases in a number of years. And so just with inflation and stuff, we're still going to stay within the budget that Switzer gave us, because that was my next question. Yeah, because we have a contract with them and they don't care if we got a contract with Ecology. I'm like, well, wait a minute. We're just flowing these funds through to get this work done. So that's it. Any other questions?
It's easy.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Better run quick. Thank you. Okay. Moving past new business, do you want to move to finance?
Jim?
Yeah. Jen, are you ready? Well, I think everything else of ours can wait.
Becomes a complimentary magic 8-ball.
So first off, I attempted to save a little money and order different types of tabs. They did not work for me as I was trying to put it together. So at the workshop, I will add more tabs. I will add actual tabs, get them ordered in and make sure that they're not falling out or anything like that. So Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Christopher, you do not have tabs yet. You just have a colored sheet of paper dividing each section.
You hoping that we bring them back next Tuesday and leave them with you for a few days until Thursday? Is that what you're hoping? Put the tabs on or to get the new?
Or I could do it at the workshop.
Just do it Thursday. Okay.
It's totally fine.
I know what you need.
So before you in those binders is a statutorily required presentation 5 preliminary budget. Total expense budget 67,780,000. Total proposed revenue 62,998,000. Leaving a difference of $4.7 million.
Jim, can you give me those numbers again?
The total expense is $67,780,087 to be exact. Total proposed revenues, $62,998,050.
Or discrepancy of
$4,782,037.
what,
They do the general fund.
huh?
General fund.
And that's strictly to the general fund. And what is the general fund's expenses?
$22,648,758.
What was the general fund last year?
Around 18.
We're looking at about $4 million more. How much of that's COLAs?
765,000, I believe. It does include both non-represented and represented.
How'd you know my next question?
This guy's a mind reader.
Do you have any good news for us?
It's
It's sunny outside.
Madam Chair, you have a hand in the back.
You may want to come forward, Heather, so because the public's going to ask to hear you. Thank you. We need to just get a microphone in the penalty box.
Was the 18 for 2024 what we started with, or was that where we are right now with supplementals?
I believe that's close to where we are right now. I would have to look it up for specific detail though.
So we've had a lot of discussion from public about the expected changes in the jail costs of the 4 million. How much would you say is dedicated to that? Increases in the jail costs?
I don't have the budget detail in front of me. A roundabout figure, actually, that's not even safe
It's
to
not.
do.
Okay.
I-
We took the current
We
jail-
could go through that on Thursday if you'd like.
But I mean, we
Well-
took the current jail budget and plugged it in, correct?
It's in there.
So it's not a lot of new money.
There's, so, technical accounting purposes, in order to get the budget complete in front of you, the coroner budget is within the PA's budget. I did speak with Cannell this morning to let him know that that was there until there's a resolution that's been adopted by the board so that Heather can move that. And then the jail budget is within the sheriff's budget until there's a resolution adopted so that Heather can move that.
So for your analysis, the 4 million is a larger spread than we had last year, and we were able to remove some of that. What would you attribute to the majority of that spread? Is it revenues dropping, or is it just expenses going up more?
We are trending with some decreased revenues and top revenue sources. The budget that's presented before you assumes a 1% property tax increase. It assumes an 18% decrease in the landfill as it's trending right now. It assumes a decrease in sales tax as well, and interest earnings.
How much did you drop the interest earnings estimate?
I would have to look at that detail.
Okay.
So we can get numbers like that on Thursday, how much you dropped.
If the board would like me to do analysis and provide those summaries, I can do that.
Yeah, I want to know what number I'm working with, why would be good. And then the 18%, can you give me more of a number on that 8%?
Oh, the landfill decline?
Yeah, an actual, what that 18% means, not just 18%. How much you're estimating in dollars.
That's not an estimate. That is the actual landfill tonnage that has been reduced today as of this year to date.
So are you asking what's in the budget for revenue from the landfill this year? I think 7. Is that what you put in there? You remember what you plugged in for landfill revenue?
For 24 or 25?
25 proposed budget.
I don't know, 72.
The forecast was 7.159.
And that's in line with the amount of drop that we've had so far.
Yeah, what's budgeted or what's been requested is actually $100,000 less than that.
So do all 3 commissioners want that summary?
If it's being done, I would like a copy, yes.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna start in on the budget, it's nice to know where we're at revenue wise and where we're at expense wise, and having a good overview analysis of here's the cost drivers. Because some of those things we'll be able to pull levers, some of them we won't.
Right.
I guess the next one I have is we were burning through cash in 911 for a long time. Has that cash all been expended, or now are we pulling from other sources? So that's a big one.
And I think Commissioner, correct me if I'm wrong, or Jen kick me. Any improvements to the jail of any kind are not reflected in anything that's going to come in.
Capital wise?
Correct.
So question, clarification on that. So in this book, you have essentially what the sheriff has been running at 1.8 million for jail. not the 2.4,
No, I have the,
2.5.
I have the 2 I think it's like 2.45.
Okay, you
or
got the
something like
2.4,
that.
2.5 in here, not the 1.8.
Yes.
But in terms of any of the other stuff that's yet to be discussed, improvements, none of those, one, we don't know what they are yet, and two, so we couldn't put a price on those kind of things, but it's not, so there's nothing in here reflecting things you may or may not choose to do.
But we're looking at potentially $600,000 in more expenses on the jail than the current base budget that we had for the year, not what we're gonna end up with.
I don't think we know yet.
Cost increases, employee costs and things like that. Then now you got to the 2.4 for the 1.8.
I would have to look at that detail.
We'll look at that.
It's been a while since.
But
I've
things
done-
like improving the medical and those kind of things that have not been discussed with the commissioners, that would not be in there, but we may have the
Actual annual
because they have 1 year left in their
medical
contracts.
costs.
And medical just went up 7%, 9%. We just got the numbers. So, but we'll look at that in more detail.
That's medical, personnel medical, not medical costs. You're talking about medical costs for the.
I use the average of actuals that have been spent historically over the last 3 years, since 2021. 2020 is anomaly, and anything before 2020, we don't operate the same way, so I went with 21 and moved forward.
Well, I think Jen knows the numbers better than probably anyone else in the county. She put the budget book together, and so any analysis she can give us on this, on the high level, that helps us find those cost drivers. And so we can focus on those. I mean, Commissioner Christopher and I have spent years going through these budgets and nickel and diamond and trying to find every penny we can, but the cheap, easy stuff is over, and the burning through the cash reserves that we had in some of these funds is over. And now it's the hard decision. So I think it was a great idea for Jen to bring everybody together to have the conversation that we're in a different world today than we were for the last 20 years. And we need to recognize that. And we're all going to have to pull together as one team. And we have currently how much available in reserves?
I would have to go back to the quarterly report to verify that. But I would
But-
say 10 to 11.
And is that accessible reserves, or is that reserves including the stuff we can't touch?
That would be accessible reserves.
And is that including the 5 million?
It might
Emergency.
include that 5 million.
So we've got about 5 million in cash reserves plus the emergency 5 million. So one thing everybody I think should know is that no matter what, we will be able to survive this year. We're not in the situation that other counties are in, because we do have cash reserves, because we've been doing that for a long time and building up our piggy bank 1 year at a time. But we're gonna have to start buttoning up our belts.
On that part of your statement, I can agree.
And I look forward to going through this.
Well, that was my next question, is how is the board planning on addressing the budget as far as working order? How are we going through it? How are things being done? Are you going to be looking at all revenues first and then expenses one at a time? Are you going in a certain order through departments? What is the board's plan for this year?
I need revenues first. I know that much to start with.
I guess I'd like to hear staff's recommendation on the best way to go through this.
I was here for the board's directive. So I was going to ask the board how you'd like me to proceed.
That's what I'm asking.
I guess, I mean,
I know,
starting with revenues is totally fine. You know, the revenues, some of them are tied to what we do, you know. I mean, some of those revenues are gonna really be dependent on the conversations we have with each department, but some of those revenues are outside of the department that are our base revenues.
Mhm.
Some of them, we've got levers we can pull. We can get very optimistic on revenues that might not be logical. As Commissioner Christopher said in the past of previous boards, not since we've been here. But I guess what I'd like to do is set the tone that we put in our budget what we truly think it's gonna be. And in the end, balance your budget. You may have to get a little creative at the end, or say you're gonna use cash, but I'd like to make sure that we're looking under every rock and making sure that there's not dollars and cents out there that we need.
So does that mean meetings with the finance team and the commissioners before you start scheduling departments in offices, and before you get to that point of how you're going to do that, do you anticipate more than one workshop to talk about the levers that you talk about before you get into detail?
I mean, I guess from the past experience, I want to go through this book and take a look and do the sniff test and then ask a bunch of questions. And then we'll go from that part of the conversation. And I'm sure Commissioner Christopher does a great job of doing that as well. And we can take a look, but $4.7 million is a lot of money for a general fund that's only running at 22 million. And we're gonna have to have some difficult conversations. And before we have those conversations, I think we need to know exactly where we're at.
I would say that I don't believe there's any way, shape, or form this board can continue to do this. Week in and week out and actually balance this budget. So I look forward to seeing what this is and on what.
And again, I want to know our base before anybody does, yes or no. I can't start anywhere till I am standing on firm ground on all the revenues and know what those mean.
I said, I would imagine that somewhere inside each of your heads, you got some kind of plan or vision of how to come up with this 4 million, because we're filling vacant positions right now. So I'm curious to see what the plan is.
Well, and I think we better be careful not to talk too much further, because I know it makes people nervous. And if we don't have ourselves on solid ground and understand the numbers and work out of those numbers, we're gonna just create supposition and people thinking things are gonna happen to their jobs, or things are happening to the county. I want to be on solid ground first. I want to know my revenues, then I want to work back through that.
And I would just say that's why I made the point that we do have reserves. We have ample reserves compared to almost any other county in the state. We're not looking at $10 million shortfalls like some of them that have already spent 3 years only surviving on COVID dollars.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but I would like to add, just so you know where I'm at going into this. Being a fiscal conservative, I believe you need to live and balance your budget out of your checking account, not digging into your savings account because you refuse to cut HBO from your cable bill. If you can't afford your cable bill, you need to cut HBO from your cable bill before you get into your savings account to pay for it. I'm not a big fan of going to the savings account. Savings account is emergency reserves, as far as I'm concerned, not for ongoing products or services, because we don't want to go like this. So it's easier just to use reserves. So it's going to be you're going to be very hard pressed to get me to be a yes on reserves. Just going forward, so you know.
Well, and that is why you build up reserves. That's why you do have an emergency reserve for when things get tight, so that you have time and you're not making drastic decisions. That's why the state has their emergency reserve fund that they created, is so that you've got good years and bad years. And we've got a cascading set of events with the loss of the contracts at the landfill. That's something that you can't anticipate for, and that's why we build up reserves.
But I would argue it's not an emergency, because we knew that a year ago, and we've had a year to plan for this budget and haven't done it. That's not an emergency. That's piss poor planning. Emergency to me is the train went on strike for a month and a half. That's an emergency. If that happened between last year's budget and this year's budget, cost us a crap load of revenue, I get it. That's an emergency. Emergency to me is an emergency, not bad planning, or you didn't want to address this issue, that issue, or cutting this service or that service in February. You wanted to wait until the budget cycle. Emergency is an emergency, and that, anyway. Don't get into the.
Well, and
At this
chicanery
time,
of
though,
it, but
for the last 5 years, have we ever spent more than our budgeted amount, or have we always put money away?
Or reserves. We have
At
a
the
fin-
end, at the end of the year, did we spend more money than we budgeted, or did we always add to our reserves?
No, we typically do not spend every dollar that we budget. County
Thank
as a
goodness.
whole.
As a whole,
Um,
that's what I'm talking
But
about.
the
County
question
as
is,
a
you
whole.
said 5 years, and I think that goes a little too far back, is we have the first year that we had to pay the $2 billion or $2 million shortfall from the previous year's budgeting. And so I think that one would be off. But since then, I do believe you're correct. We put money in reserves every year, more in reserves than we took out throughout the rest of the year.
We always front load reserves we have a financial policy that the board, a prior board has set where we are required to put $250,000 a year into reserves out
Right,
of
but do
the
you spend
landfill.
500? That's my point. So you're not growing reserves just because you have a policy of putting 250 in. You have to spend less than 250.
I'm just clarifying that
Right.
there
I'm
is a
just-
financial policy in place for that.
I guess a better way to put it is over the last 4-5 years, has the reserves that the county has access to, liquidity reserves, continue to go up? Even though we've been looking at these financial headwinds.
I would have to go back to my quarterly report, but it's reported in your quarterly reports, so you'd be
Since
able
we
to
took
track that.
office, the answer is yes. Before that, you get a little gray.
But you can't use reserves on a sustainable basis. I mean, you can't
You shouldn't use reserve.
large amounts.
And I'm one of the most fiscally conservative people as well. I'm just trying to set this tone that while this is going to be a difficult budget year, we do have reserves, that this is not going to be, we're laying off half of the workforce or anything else. This isn't a 2009 to 2011 yet. This isn't how bad it was back in the day. You know, this is a structural issue that we've got to come to grips with and find a way to manage, both locally as well as at the state level with the conversations.
So then at the next workshop, we'll bring the revenues and sounds like maybe one more workshop after that, at least part of it on the before you start bringing in departments or offices, or decide how you're going to do that at that point.
Well, I think, you know, on the other hand, we can start bringing in offices and giving us an update on groups that actually don't take from the general fund. People that aren't asking from the general fund revenues or even from the landfill, because one's not the same as the other. And we could have some of those conversations so that we get a good update. I'm thinking like public health, maybe senior services, to get a first shot at senior services. We don't need to just have, you know, a meeting in the morning for 2 hours and then be done for the rest of the day when we have still time. I would think we're probably in the end going to talk to everybody this year.
And I
Same deal. I would add that you can add the road in there because it's a completely different fund. But even out of the general, I believe you can add the courts in there. Because I don't know that there's that much that this board plans on doing with the 3 courts. You know, maybe not the clerks and probation and all the rest of the court, but at least West, East, Superior. Those are pretty.
Standard.
I guess my question is, and maybe Jen should ask it, so you want to start booking? Could I say all 3 of you nodding, and we're trying to be clear going forward? Do you want to start booking those after the workshop? You want to leave a Thursday?
Can I explain something?
Go ahead.
First before they answer that. So it was my intention to, the first workshop be on the 12th. Gives you a week and a half to digest the book in front of you. Provide me any questions you may have, want some additional analysis on something. And then on the 12th, the morning is booked out for workshop with finance to go through that at a high level view. And then after that would have been how the board wants to proceed. with booking out departments and offices. During my meeting with other departments and offices, I had asked, because last year we took a different approach of the board calling in departments. So I'd asked all of them to let me know if they wanted a workshop in front of the board, regardless of the direction the board chose, so that I knew and could advise the board on that. So I have two. I have Public Works and I have Emergency Management.
But I heard from some other ones that do want to come before the board.
That's great. They just didn't contact me.
Yeah. So they'd like to talk to the commissioners.
So when I asked for staff recommendation on where to go, you did already have it figured out.
Well, I had a plan based off of the last 2 years of how I would have proceeded, but the different board.
And
I
while I
like having the
appreciate you
middle.
holding back your idea to make sure this board comes up with their own idea. I appreciate your idea, and that's exactly how I would do it. It sounds like the same that Jake wants to do and the same that Lori. Let's have a morning, let's talk about it, let's look through basic revenues so that we maybe have the opportunity to look at some of those revenues like landfill and sales tax and negotiate what we think it's going to be or how much we want to err on the side of caution and then move forward from there. And we have all the interviews in the afternoon that day.
Yeah,
11:45 to 5.
I had already worked with Rob on that.
Sounds good.
You know, I hope this comes out the way it's in my head. If not, they'll be lined up waiting for me down there. This will be my 35th, 36th public budget. I've never seen one start out balanced. I've never seen a public entity go broke. We're not broke. We have money. It's how you choose to spend it. It'll be a difficult 4.7 today, and that number will change. Is a difficult task. But the only for certain is we have to have a balanced budget by law. And how we get from here to there is what we're trying to figure out. But we'll get through it. Every public agency gets through it. And I've never seen one start out balanced. Look, balance came in exactly. Expenses and revenue is just not the way it works. So we'll get through it.
I had a comment, but I'll
Take the high road, Dan.
I'll just-
Take the high road.
You can make a balanced budget pretty easy.
Yeah.
Just change the number.
Just keep in mind that a budget is fluid and numbers, accounting, finance, it changes. The numbers in our system have probably changed 10 times in this conversation. So it's constantly fluid. It's just an estimate going forward.
And I think making the implicit, explicit, this is the first time we've talked about the 2025 budget. I mean, with any numbers. There has been no discussion individually or collectively about staff reductions, layoffs, furloughs, any of that kind of stuff. So if people are thinking that or working, or, it is a tough task ahead, but I've not heard the commissioner say what that's going to look like. We're a long way, I hope, from any of those kind of discussions, if ever. So
Yes, but I would also add it would be piss poor planning if you didn't plan for 2 years ahead on what may happen and what you may need to do.
Yeah.
That would be piss poor planning. So I would also add that if you look at our insurance premium, where our insurance premiums are based on worker hours, and we have the same county population as other counties, but we pay way more insurance because we have way more county workers. It would maybe behoove us or the future board to get ahead of themselves and maybe do some research on how many employees those other counties have in various departments and offices so that we can kind of do a comparison on how much more of a service that we provide than they provide. Because eventually somebody's going to have to make a decision.
Can I add to that? Just in regards to service levels, Klickitat County has been fortunate enough to be able to provide a level of service and different services to our constituents that other counties have not been able to provide solely due to the landfill dollars. And,
Well, I'd
and
say
what's
solely due to landfill, but also windmill for 6.6 million.
correct. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I apologize. I forgot about green energy.
They're both there.
Yes. So we've been fortunate to be able to do that and provide services that are above required services.
And I think to your point, Commissioner, some people don't like the term strategic planning, long-range planning, call it whatever you want. The goal should always be sustainability. You can't do that 1 year at a time.
You either
So-
plan ahead or it's an emergency.
So strategic planning is vital to having a
And
sustainable.
if I'm not
budget.
sitting here, I hope whoever is sitting here looks forward and does that analysis just for their own education. They don't have to lay anybody off, but at least they have an education moving forward.
I think we're just trying to acknowledge, we understand there's a lot of stress out there, a lot of unknowns, and that creates its own stress. So we're probably going to be asking a lot more. Where do you want us to go? What do you want us to do? What's the next step you want us to do? Just to make sure we're moving along in pace with what you want to do this year, because it's going to be a little different than the last couple of years.
Anything else? Okay. Heather?
Oh, I just want to say thank you to staff. I know putting this together is a lot of work, and I know it's a lot of work for our directors and our department heads and our other electeds to put the budget together. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone who's put in the midnight oil to get it all done on top of all the regular duties that you have.
And I have to ask if we have a bunch of those little skinny sticky tabs in the. It's Mr. Christopher.
I don't know if he's going to want a yellow pen or he's going to want the yellow tabs.
He wants tabs.
It sounds like he wants the red pen.
The red pen.
They're usually this size, but then I found the small size last year and I kind of realized I kind of like the small ones better. So I small tab the outside and then I sticky tab the inside, and that's the one budget 2 years ago that I voted yes on, but had a problem with this because I had like 42 sticky tabs in there that the board refused to look at.
I think it was
And I'm
Dave's
like,
daughter
"All right,
that had the
fine.
yellow
I'll
pen.
sign off on this one.
Highlighter. Okay.
I would just like to add, the board's done a great job in the past on really going through each budget and understanding and itemizing and reducing and asking the directors and the other electeds to reduce pretty significantly to get this point. So dealing with $4.7 million will be something outside of just red lines. And so whatever you can get to me ahead of time, any questions, anything, I would appreciate that so that I'm not wasting any time on Thursday. And I have it in front of me to be able to answer.
Good.
Start.
Think it would behoove us to throw her on the agenda for 10 or 15 minutes next Tuesday? Or any questions, comments, concern that we've had between now and next Tuesday as we go through here?
Great question.
Because it'd be helpful for us to hear, for everybody to hear the
It's like you may
questions.
hear nothing, but you might hear something that could help you.
That would be fine.
I look forward to the overview.
Thank you.
It's gonna be interesting, that's all I know.
It's gonna be fun. Okay. Miscellaneous reports and comments.
Okay, I wanted to give, this is the discussion of the county revenue legislative priorities. For the discussion, if we went with property tax cap, raised to 3% from 1% per year. Klickitat County would go from $54,478 in revenue to $108,955. No, $163,000. So it would be,
That's just clarification, that's just general fund, the same thing would happen in the road fund.
that is just general fund. And that would be $108,955. So if,
Technically times two, because it'll be in the road fund as well.
yeah, but the road fund doesn't need, we're looking at like a $4 million, $5 million budget deficit in the general fund. Road fund is its own fund, right?
Well, I'm well aware of that, but it's still it will be $108,000 tax increase to the general public to fund the general fund, but it'll also be like $116,000 for the road fund.
And then you would also have all the junior taxing
Plus all the
districts and
juniors,
everybody
correct. So
else.
I don't want to just say it's only the county's only getting an extra 100, because the county will actually get an extra 2 if that happens, because you actually have the road fund.
So if it was just for the general fund, the average home would go up $20 a year. If it was all inclusive, road and general, it would go up about $40 a year.
You were saying for 1 year, can you do that for a 1 year period or?
So
You
yes,
could do it.
no,
year
you
over
can,
year, just like
you can take.
this year, last year, we didn't have to do the 1% last year. Any year you can not take the
Yes,
whatever
absolutely.
percent.
You can or not take it. And then if you don't take it, it gets banked, so you can use it in the future. But and the 1% is just what you can do, without going out to a vote of the people for a levy lift or anything
So,
else.
and also to
Okay.
clarify some misunderstandings that are out there in the public. If you vote no on if you vote no on the 1% increase, that doesn't mean the county doesn't have any money or you defund the government. That means you collect the same property tax you collected last year automatically. You don't go backwards and collect nothing. You just collect what you got last year.
I think that you can vote no on the 1%, but it is actually, you're not voting on the 1%, you're voting on the actual levy. So that includes all of it. It's just that when we went through the budget process altogether, the 1% was always baked in. We never had a conversation about not having that.
Oh, we did.
But
Because
if
I
you go
tried to
over the
explain to you
1%.
guys that it affected the new construction budget pump part of it, affected the green energy, and that's what causes the tax shift, which I don't know that this board has even looked into yet. To verify what I said of the new construction budget bump is essentially the tax shift. So if you don't take the new construction budget bump and the 1% the first year, that a green energy project like Lund Hill comes online last year, then there will, if we would have chosen not to as a board, take the 1% in the new construction budget bump, there would have been no tax shift from Lund Hill.
And the county would be facing a greater than $5 million budget deficit, not looking into the future.
No, it would have not gotten 150,000 last year.
So your budget deficit would get bigger over the next few years. If I may continue. The graduated county REIT was a lot of discussion. Because at the 3%, the whole state, it would only be $35 million change. Which, where do we put our chips for the conversations at the state level? The graduated county REIT would be up to $125 million. The problem and issue that I have with that is that the idea was to change the REIT rates so that it would be, right now we get 0.25% all the way down for our, REIT. It would go for less than $1.5 million. It would potentially go down to 0.21%. And then 500,000 to 1.5 would be 20.25, and then 1.5 to 3 would be 0.54, and then 3 would be over 3 million would be 0.59. So it would be a marginal rate. So the cheaper the house, then the rate would actually go down. We never ran the numbers on some small counties that only have $500,000 or less houses sell. You might actually see a decrease in the overall revenues, where King County would see a massive increase. So there's a lot of issues that are currently baked into that one. And so we've been working through that. The point I made is so when we used to get both 0.25s of the REIT, and we gave up 1/2 of it, 0.25, in order to take the other 0.5 in sales tax. So we did a swap. And if we want most counties have access to 0.5% of REIT, not 0.25. And the reason is because they're fully planning counties under GMA, and that is an opt-in thing. So the question I had is for the smaller counties that are non-planning in GMA, right now, we're getting stabbed, or we're not on equal footing because we're not fully planning under GMA and it's tied to the REIT. And I said, well, if for us, having access to the other 0.25 of REIT, if the board so choose to take it, would have a much greater impact than a small change in a graduated formula on REIT. And that's something that you can choose to do. This county, while we're looking at a $4.7 million budget shortfall, we also haven't pulled any of the revenue levers that almost all other counties have pulled a long time ago. We don't take all the sales tax bumps. We still have the lowest sales tax in the state because we haven't pulled all those levers. And so the problem that we have is if we went to the state and said, hey, we want more money, the first thing they would say is, well, have you used all of the available options that we've given you in the past? And we're like, actually, we haven't taken any of them. We just want more money.
But that is my biggest concern with the majority of the board pushing for a 3% tax increase, because I fear that if a county or Klickitat County ever wanted to just take 1% instead of the 3% on any given year, and then we were applying for grant, the state would say, well, did you take your 3% before you asked me for money? Same scenario you're using. I think they would hold it against you and damn near force you to take 3% every year. So I worry about that, and
Well,
that's why
that's not how usually the grants, grants are competitive grants, how they all work. That's not how it gets managed at the state
Well, a
level.
lot of counties and a lot of other county commissioners, conservative county commissioners have the same worries I do on that, so I'm not alone.
Well, I think just the same thing with the REIT. We all have the same concern is that when you're asking the state, you have two options. You're either asking the state to raise taxes or the state to give you money in taxes that they receive that they don't get anymore. It's really whether the state does it, we do it, or it's a cost sharing. Either way, somebody has to pay for it because it's all real money. And that's the real issue. The many of the conservative counties throw their hands up in the air because it's primarily the rural areas who don't want tax increases. They still want all of the benefits, and they want the money from the state. So if I can continue going on, I can give you the update on the other ones. Another one is the county utility tax up to 3%. So cities can tax utilities, counties cannot, even though that we have utilities within it. If you went if the county were to the utility tax up to 3%, for every 1% on the utilities, it would be $50 million in revenue overall for the state. So if you took a 3%, then it would be 150 million, and it would be larger than all the rest of the dollars, when you think about it. That's likely facing a pretty uphill battle. The cities get access to that dollar that the counties don't, and it is a big revenue source for the cities. And some of the really urban counties are like, well, we're like a city in ourselves. Why don't we get it? We're providing the same services. And then the last one was the sharing of the cannabis tax at 20%. And so that would be 10%. So we're saying, we're the ones who do all this work with cannabis. And that would be $75 million that would be shared with the cities. So it'd be 10% for the cities, 10% for the counties.
Yeah, but we would have to opt in to allow cannabis and not have our current prohibition in order to receive that funding.
You potentially would. It all depends on how it would be written.
Well, that's the way it's written now.
Right. And so that would be part of that conversation. That $75 million, which is one of those things, it would be a tax that's already being collected that the state is getting, and we would just be trying to etch some off for us. So there's always a possibility of that happening. But if you did all of those tax changes, it'd be $285 million. It could be, if all that went to be, it would be a significant amount of money for the county. It still wouldn't be $4.5 million or anything close to that. So those are the big ones.
285 if you did all those things? 285, is that what you said?
No, I said it wouldn't be 4.5.
No, the 285 million if you did all those things I think is what you said. If you did all those things, it's 285 million to the state.
For all of the counties.
Total statewide is 285.
Yes.
Just doing some division. How many people live in the state of Washington? Is there 12 million?
7.5, I believe.
No, Oregon's got 7.5.
$7.786 million in Washington.
That's way off then. So I was just doing some division. If you tax 7.77 million people to get 285,000, what that'd be.
285 million.
285 million. Yeah, what their share of all that would be.
And so there was a great amount of conversation on, what's the best path, what makes the most sense for the counties? Where do we put our political chips? And you can always make changes to these and, because, you're going to end up having to compromise when it goes in front of the legislature. There was still, from some of the large counties, there was still a lot of push and belief that the 3% is a good place to start because at least it would keep you up with inflation, nothing else considering. And remember, those counties have pulled almost all the levers. They've got sales taxes in the 10% range.
Yeah, but they also have hideous spending habits.
They provide services to their constituents as the constituents demand. Some would say. I'm trying to find where it went. So that was kind of the conversation. Staff is going to go back and punch some more numbers and get back to us on the directions, but I don't see any of that as a silver bullet. I don't see any of it as something that's going to, fix the issues the structural issues that I think all counties have in all cities.
That's what we have here right now.
And I wouldn't bank on any of it. I think the $200,000, ask that we put as a priority for the coroner position, for all the small counties that are having to pay for this, that, is pretty much an unfunded mandate from the state. I think that would have a fair chance of passing using state general fund dollars because they have to step up to the plate and say, okay, we made this decision. This is where we're at. I think that, $200,000 is still $200,000 for a few years to help us get through it.
As I said, I mean, maybe they would do that because there's only so many small counties. And it's only 200 grand, so they can whop that out for a couple mil and it doesn't hurt them that bad, but they don't want to give up their money either.
No, they
So
don't.
I don't picture them giving up their money. I do picture them allowing you to tax more if you want, because that doesn't hurt them. You're the bad guy for taxing more. And so I don't know. I just have this strange feeling that will be the push next year.
And I agree, the rural counties, the people that we're talking, when we had the option of, the REIT, whether that's something that the state does or whether it's something that you implement yourselves, well, they want the state to push that down because then it's more money and then you can point at the state and be like, well, it's the state that raised your taxes, not me, re-election stuff. So you see it both sides. Some people want the option, some people want the state to just impose it based on the politics at the moment. So that's kind of the update. I again, pushed and brought up that probably for Klickitat County, if we look over a 4-year period, if we were either to get a credit or we were to just be able to keep our portion of the sales tax on green energy projects, it would have a much larger impact on the county budget than any and all of these combined.
Right. But in the same regard, you said we still have levers that we can pull, and you're absolutely right. We can pull a lever and do another 0.5% of sales tax, which would make most of your deficit go away. But it would probably also make any chance of data centers going away. Because now they're gonna move to Douglas County because your sales tax is too high. So there's consequences to pulling a lever as well. So,
There are consequences for every action and unintended consequences for every action that you take. I'm just pointing out that we have to make that hard decision with the community and the public all involved, that we provide a level of service currently that is greater than most other rural counties by far.
don't disagree.
And it's where the public wants to see those levels of service into the future. And it's our decision to make that hard decision.
And that's where I would say, unless the state gives us green energy tax, changes the law to that you can get 3%, and the county takes advantage of each of those levers. Eventually, may not be this year, may not be next year, maybe the year after. But within the next 2 or 3, we're going to have to be looking at services, because even 3% does not keep up with inflation. So eventually you're going to have to figure out how many employees do you have and what kind of services you offer, which is why I'm saying it would behoove this Board of Commissioners, the next Board of Commissioners, to be doing some comparative shopping and planning ahead.
I know we've had many conversations at this board between you and I about these issues that we knew were coming, that we could see coming, being both forward thinking on these. I know some things move faster than others. We burned through more cash on the 911 by a year than we had thought. And that has a material impact on this budget. One of the other conversations is the revenue, and having the public put their money where their mouth is. 70+% of this budget goes straight to public safety. And do we need to run a public safety levy to keep up with that inflation that is happening in that side of the house? And that's something that then you would put it to the general public and say, this is the level of service you have today. This is the level of service you will have next year, or you can vote and you can have this level of service. And and give the public, simple options. And then you let the chits fall where they fall. There's a lot of different, we have more options and more levers here in this county than any other county has, because for so long, we have never used the levers that other counties have already pulled.
Would the coroner go on a public safety levy?
If you wanted it to. I mean, the other thing, that a lot of counties are very jealous of us is, and I can hear them running upstairs already, is that they move a lot of money from public works, from the road fund to the sheriff's department. And a lot of counties have been forced to do that for a lot of years, because that's something you can do.
So for Lori, which you may already know all this, so feel free to just get it repeated.
Feel free to get it repeated.
Well, because you may or may not, but people in the room may not know as well. Most counties do a public works diversion. They take, say, $1 million of road fund tax that comes into public works, and they divert it to the sheriff's department to fund the sheriff's department. We've always done the opposite. We've taken $1 million of landfill funds and given it to public works. That has changed in the last couple of years. Now it's only 250 of landfill fund going to public works. But yes, I don't know of another county that doesn't do the public works diversion. I think they all do, but that is.
I think there's a couple that don't.
I would be curious to just have somebody name me one.
The land county.
But I also don't know of any of them that put money in over and above road funds. Now there's a purpose for it, and I understand it. It helps their accounting. They don't want to give up the money, blah, 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 blah. But we've had this conversation for 3 years. And I would also add that if 3 years ago, the change would have been made, you would have $1 million a year for the last 3 years that you didn't currently have, and you'd have 3 million more in your emergency reserve. We didn't do that. So now you have nothing in your reserve, but you can take the.
Well, we've got $10 million in our reserve.
Well, you don't have that 3 million because you spent the 3 million.
But if you're saying you diverted it over to the sheriff, you would have 3 million less.
Well, you would, you could, because you could literally right now, we give the sheriff 5 million.
You could have.
Okay, we give the sheriff 5 million. If you take $1 million from the road fund and put it in the sheriff's office, it doesn't mean he gets 6 million.
Okay.
It just means he gets 5 million. Now you take this million out of general fund and suck it away and put it in the bank. So technically you could have had 3 million. You have to figure out what you're going to spend 2 or 3 years from now and plan today, or you have problems. And now we're seeing the problems from continuing to pay for water rights, childcare, all those things. We have to start doing this instead of this.
I'm sorry, we get beat up over childcare all the time. What have we been doing to pay for childcare?
I'm curious if the board is still gonna fund the Watt Gap Youth Center this year or not.
Did we ever get a list of the statutory things we have to do?
I don't know that there technically is a list, but.
Oh, yeah. Well, there
is,
there's
but
public health and safety. I mean, that's the stuff that you're required to. What it doesn't say is nowhere in the state does it say you have to pay 70% of all of your general fund for public health, public
Right, that's our
safety.
choice. What we do
It's
in
how
it.
you set those priorities, and that's the expectation of the board to set.
right.
There
So you
are.
can have 1 officer on the streets or you can have 3. That's your prerogative. Now some people would say that affects health and safety. But in the same regard, you can have 20 people in the health department, or you can have 10. The BOCC can have 1 employee or 3. Those are all choices.
The other thing I would bring up is that 4 years ago, I sat through all these meetings and didn't have a say in it. I just had to deal with it when we got it. There were a lot of changes or things that I would have liked to see the previous board do before we took this seat. And I just put it out there that anybody who's running for my position, I am always willing to have a conversation with about this budget. And I hope to God they take a look at this budget and they go over it with a fine tooth comb so that they can start learning it, because it's not something you just pick up off the street and suddenly there's a lot to it, and they're the ones that are going to have to deal with it because I won't be here. And so
I will throw you my second attaboy of the day. While we haven't always agreed on what should be cut out of the budget, I think you have done a great job with the budget in general, being able to line item this, that, and everything else, just like me. And it's been a pleasure to have somebody that was able to do that. Now, there may be things I want to line item that you don't. Fine, we disagree on that. But the rest of it, we got most of the pork, most of the gold-plated toilet seats out of this budget. And so I appreciate that.
Which, thank you very much, which also leads us to the problem is that there's no gold-plated toilet seats or pork left in the budget.
Surely not 4.7. If I got to run the budget myself and made all the decisions, could I balance the budget? Yes. Would people not like me? Absolutely. But how much pork would I be able to find in there? I'm guessing no more than 100 grand.
That's the problem we're faced with.
It's gone. I still get credit card bills that I pull out of the credit card slot that go, what? Now. So there's still some shenanigans, but it's few and far between.
Well, that was a rosy conversation. Let's just set the stage on a positive year.
But we've argued 4 times and agreed 4 times. We're batting 50-50 today.
We can do this.
Actually,
don't know how.
Negative.
Well, I do know how, but the board's never chose to do it before. So I'm curious if we're doing it this year. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen.
Okay, that's all I had on the state revenue dollars. But I think Jen is being conservative and wisely conservative when it comes to things like sales tax. The state revenue forecast is not looking good either. And so she's following in that footsteps it's never a good thing when costs continue to go up and your revenues are just going to go down. And that puts you in this situation that we're in.
Right, but I guess where I'm coming from is where I want to look at revenues is, I think we still play way too conservative. I thought landfill revenue was 7.2, even though my head put it at 7.5, 7.6, and we were, come to find out it was 7.1 conservative. And it turns out to be 7.8. I mean, there's 700 grand. Now, granted, that's what she uses to pay for supplementals, so I understand doing it. But I'm far more of a believer in, if we think it's going to be 7.8, pick it at 7.5, a little closer. And you start telling people with supplementals, no. You have to start telling people no. I'm sorry you don't have any money. Figure it out.
So the problem,
You've got to not buy an air conditioner next month or put your employee on a furlough. That's your problem for not managing your budget. Why are we continuously saying yes to every supplemental?
that would be a major problem, but that comes down to the budgeting correctly in the first place by the electeds and the department heads to ensure that when they budget something such as their COLAs or their benefits or however it is, that is accurate and correct, because when you have things like $300,000 of overtime or benefit allocations that come in December, we can't not pay for it because we're statutorily required to pay for
Right,
it when
but
we
what we-
already occurred it.
What we can do is, we knew we didn't budget COLAs in. We set that money aside. We'll give it to you when you need it. I have no problem with doing a supplemental budget for any of those COLAs that we already agreed to. I have no problem doing a supplemental budget for somebody that retired that we didn't plan on, and they have a $30,000 payout supplemental. Then give me a supplemental for the rest of it. The rest of it is piss poor planning on your part for not keeping up on your budget on a monthly basis, and you overspent in March. And instead of cutting yourself back in April, you overspent in April, and then you ran to me for help. Plan your money accordingly and quit asking me for supplemental, other than the things that are an emergency because somebody retired or we already knew it with a COLA.
So you did bring up something I was thinking about, and that is, we have this silver generation that's coming, and there will be more retirements, and some of these retirements are 20 to 40,000 up. Right now, they in essence have to come out of reserves, which is one way to do it, but another way to do it is to create a pot that handles with retirements and those payouts for sick leave and vacation on a retirement, so that at least you're accounting for it for the year coming up, and it would be a non-departmental, so at least you know that that's going to happen. Because pulling that straight from somebody's budget, so say you've got a 3-person department and one person retires. Well, that $25,000 or $30,000 can't just be absorbed by the department during that budget. So it's going to have to get moved over. Some other department that might have 50 employees, you could more easily absorb that with one person not being employed, having an opening for 3 or 4 months. You could potentially do that. But if we looked at that in terms of, having a pool of dollars that are there based on potential retirements that we budgeted each year, it would help us more accurately reflect the budget. Now, another way you can think about it is that when you have 255 employees or so, that you're going to have a vacancy rate at any given time, maybe 2 or 3%. And that's one way to think about managing that. But, that's why we don't spend all the money every year, is because we have vacancies.
And that's where I don't know that I can, not that I'm opposed to setting a pool of money, but that's essentially what we've worked 3 years to not do, is have these little side pools of money that never get spent. Knowing that you retire, we'll just take it out of non-departmental and handle it because there's only a couple of them. But in the same regard, I don't know if it's that big of a deal to deal with, because even in those departments that have 8 or 10 employees, there's enough job vacancy throughout the year that they're not asking for the $30,000 payout. They only need 8 because they had enough vacancy to cover most of it. And so it's like, you look at us on an average year, how many retirements do we have that there's a 30,000 type of payout, and it's 2, 3. So I just don't know that it's justifies I don't want to say setting up a slush fund, but, or a petty cash drawer. So I just don't think it's there because we're already doing that with the COLA. So if we set aside 400 grand for COLAs, we're never using the 400. We're only going to use 150 because the rest of it's through vacancy. So you technically have 300 sitting there to pay out your retirements. And I think that's what we're doing now with it. And so I'm more likely to leave it the way it is, setting the COLA aside in a separate fund, knowing that they'll never use the whole COLA and we can use the COLA for retirement payouts. I like that better, but that's my 2 cents.
I just think it's worthy of a discussion amongst the whole board on how we want to deal with that,
If
because
you
the way
weren't
we're
setting
doing,
aside COLAs, yes.
because the way we're doing COLAs right now is not how it was ever done before. And we're only doing COLAs for the non-represented in that. We don't do the represented because they know what they're getting ahead.
Good question. We might be holding out the represented too for like the sheriff's office, just in case there's vacancies or whatnot.
Good question to ask Jen.
I don't know if we're only keeping out the non-represented or not. I thought we were keeping them all out, but if this board ever decided to not do COLAs and not set that money aside, you might be smart to set 100 grand for retirement chest.
Oh, that is one of the questions. I know when I worked for the county the first 3 years, I don't think we got a COLA. Represented everybody got a COLA. The next year, the managers got a COLA, and then the next year, line staff got a COLA, but that was back in 2015, 16, 17 timeframe, because at the same time, the money wasn't there. And
I'm aware that every year we've been here, you've kind of lobbied for no COLAs.
I have not once lobbied for no COLAs. I'm just saying this is what what has happened in the past. And
Yeah,
no,
and I'm a
not.
firm believer that if you have 10 employees in a department, those employees deserve a cost of living adjustment. And if you need to go to 9 employees in the department so that you can use that 10th one's wages to pay for the 9's COLAs, that's what you do. Because they deserve their wage and they deserve an equitable wage and they deserve to be paid fairly and equally. And if that means a reduction in staff or services to do it, that's what you do. So that's just a difference of opinion and we'll have those conversations through the budget. But for the most of it, I'm gonna try to sit here as quietly as I can, which good luck with that, right? She's like laughing.
No, what was it you said to me earlier? Even if you don't choose, I'm gonna tell you this. That's okay.
Whether you've heard it or not, you're gonna hear it again. I think it was.
Well, I didn't know if
phrased
I
it,
didn't
but it's
know
like-
if you had ever had the public works diversion discussion.
Yeah, I knew.
I can't imagine
is a
most
really
of the
weird one.
public knew anything about it.
It's really weird.
So I was using it as an educational experience.
Okay, always good.
Madam Chair, I believe we have a closed session still,
Oh, yeah.
and I would like to stop while we're all still being cordial.
Yeah.
I would, yeah. There's been a few little.
So I read my little thing, closed session. Here's
Well,
this,
do we need the person that's supposed to be doing the closed session to come in here?
and
What's
who
that?
is it?
What's all this good stuff?
Who's doing this?
I believe it's Rob.
Okay. Doesn't have his name on here.
I noticed that.
Oh, okay. Hi, so we are going to enter into a closed session for some issues which may qualify for executive session in accordance with RCW 42.30.140, Pren 4, Pren B. Do I have to read the rest of that? Okay. The portion of the meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining, professional negotiations, or reviewing the proposals made by negotiations or proceedings while in progress.
And for all you people that didn't understand all that technical lingo that we have to read, they're union negotiations.
Thank you.
And we won't be turning Zoom back on when we get done. We don't have any more business before us. I would just like to mention that we will not be meeting this Thursday, and we don't have anything. We're all three of us, so we will be here on next Tuesday. And thank you to everyone who has been 34 of you that still survived.
Or they're out throwing the ball for their dog